We play and call it work.
Hey there, Wargamers! Vito and Luka here from MiniWarGaming to go over the new, much-anticipated, chapter-approved 2019 out this November. Now, I think this was supposed to come out in the summertime, or maybe late summer. I can't quite remember. It was delayed maybe. If not, it's here now. You guys have been waiting for it for quite a while, and we're going to go over its contents in a kind of quick, not so painful way, maybe, ideally. I make no promises other than that. With Vito here, he can kind of keep me in line and stop me from rambling, so I appreciate that. What we're going to go over here is some of the new content, or what we find to be the most interesting content here. Now, the whole purpose of Chapter Approved is to cover all facets of the game. In every way, shape, and form, it kind of goes even deeper into the main three ways of playing, right? You have your open war, you have your narrative, and your match play ways of playing this game. Now, that doesn't apply to everyone, right? The whole idea of this book is to hit all of you in one way or another. Obviously, all the tournament players, you're going to be mostly interested in the Munitorum Field Manual, I'd assume, because that's all the point changes. Maybe if you're a tournament player that doesn't do like the ITC, ETC stuff, they have brand new Maelstrom of War missions and Eternal War missions. Maelstrom of War, now called Schemes of War, as a rule, is built from the ground up. We're going to be covering that. Now, if you're into open war and you like the open war cards, they have different ways of using the open war cards. I want to suspect that's from suggestions that people have given Games Workshop over the last year, or maybe things that Games Workshop has come up on their own. You know, got to give them some credit where credit's due, and a bunch of new ways to play narratively.
So Luka and I, we actually just played a game in the MiniWarGaming Vault where we used a Maelstrom of War mission in the Chapter Approved 2019. And we played with the random army generator, which was actually a lot of fun. I decided to use Slanesh, as I really wanted to test my mettle at going all melee against Luka's. We're going to leave that a little bit of a secret of what Luka decided to play. And if you guys want to see that bat rep, I recommend you guys trying out the Vault for a 7-day free trial. If you don't actually want to try out the Vault, I highly recommend you guys go to store.miniwargaming.com, where you guys can pick up our dice, my vest dice, or Luka's Taco Kitty dice,
personal little fun dice,
or any one of the dice that all of our content producers have here, our widgets, or even some of our clothing that we have at MiniWarGaming. And that's one of the ways that you guys can support us here at miniwargaming.com. We love you guys, so thank you so much for tuning in to this video. So thank you guys so much from both Luka and I and everyone here at MiniWarGaming.
Forgot to mention that, of course, we will be covering the new points changes. That's just to be at the end of the video, so if you're not interested in literally anything between here and now, just skip to that. But it's also at the end for anyone who's not interested in the points, that they can just get to that point and then they can just peace out and go watch the video if they want to. It was quite a good game between Vito and myself. I don't know, a lot of internal balance when it comes to the points, right? Like
there's been some significant point changes with a lot of the armies. And we're going to be covering some of the armies, not all of them, just the ones that have some really major point changes. So stay tuned for that.
We're going to jump into Open War first, and then we'll make our way naturally through the rest of this review of Chapter Approved 2019. And if you're not interested in the Open War stuff, you can just skip ahead to the narrative stuff. And then if you're not interested in that, we'll talk about match play stuff as well later on. So with Open War, this is the format that Games Workshop has laid out with you at first with the Open War deck of cards, right? Those are a great asset, by the way, for anyone interested. These kind of let you do a very quick pickup game, even quicker than match play stuff. Whereas match play, you have to kind of do a little bit of setup, make sure the terrain's all good. Open War, you literally throw down whatever you want. Here's your deck of deployment, your objective, your twist, and then your ruse and sudden death if you choose to use them. And then you just flip over a card of each deck, and that's your game. Now they have 3 new ways of playing that. Either Games Workshop has come up with these, or these are house rules that people have come up with on their own that have been submitted to Games Workshop. We have, let me see if I can remember them off the top of my head. It's Secret Agenda, the draft mode, and covert operations. So in the end, you have 4 ways now to play with this Open War deck.
All right, so for our first method, which is going to be drafting, we have Player A, which then takes the first 3 cards of the deployment and offers them to Player B. Player B then has to pick one of those cards, and that is going to be the deployment for the game. They then switch off. Player B takes 3 cards, and then offers it for the objective, and then player A has to take one of those cards, and then that's going to be the objective for that game.
Yeah, that's how you determine the deployment and the objective. And then the next step is for the twist deck. You just kind of separate it into two evenly split piles. You give one to player A, you give one to player B. They sift through it, and they look for a card that they want to be the twist, and then they simply pick it. They put it down face down. They wait for their opponent to pick one, and then once both players have picked the card, they reveal them at the same time, and both twists are in effect for that game. It might sound like it takes longer to do, but it really doesn't take that much longer to do. It's just a little bit more explanation needed. And then you use the following rules for ruses and sudden deaths as you would the normal method.
It would be very rapid fire because you pick three, and then one, and then both twists are active right away. I think that's pretty cool.
I love a draft. I love any form of draft. It's like the second they put draft in the title, they got me.
Yeah. So method 2 is going to be secret agenda. This one is actually really complicated, but also a little bit volatile.
Or it could be very volatile.
So the way this one works is player A draws from the objective deck. Sorry, not the objective, the deployment deck, and then player B then draws from the objective deck.
Using the normal rules.
Normal ways.
So just you flip over the top card, you have to determine the player A or player B.
Yeah.
But the biggest twist to this one is, well, literally the twist, I suppose. You separate them into two decks again. Player A gets one, player B gets one. They pick one card they want, to put them down face down in front of them, and they keep them face down because at the start of every battle round, both players roll a d6 on a 4 or more. They flip over their twist card, then it's active for the rest of the game. You also have to take out some twist cards that aren't going to work in that kind of environment. Much like the previous one, some of the twist cards it suggests you take out because they wouldn't work normally. Now, if it does require something to start from the first battle round, you just treat the turn that it was flipped over as the first battle round. In addition to that, what makes this mode more volatile is you take the Ruse and Sudden Death decks and you deal one card face down to each player. So each player is going to have a Ruse and a Sudden Death, and you have no idea what they are because they're both face down for both players. That's pretty much how Secret Agenda works. It could be very much over right away turn 1,
right.
Or it could be a pretty close game. If you're looking for quick, random, unpredictable, that's probably the one for you. Or if you like the kind of secret espionage, cloak and dagger like play style of these games. Or for Alpha Legion, Raven Guard, all that good stuff.
And finally, for method 3, we have covert operations. This one is actually kind of cool in that you generate who's going to be player A and player B as normally.
Right.
But this one, instead of drawing objective cards, you actually draw 2 sudden death cards.
Yep. Like face down each player.
Yeah, you have them face down, and then you have to score both of those sudden death cards to win. You can't score just one of them. You have to draw, or you have to score both of those to win the game.
Yeah, because normally with a sudden death, you win an immediate victory if you immediately score your objective. But there's no objective cards used in this game, and it uses the normal twist card as well, except you take out the many pass the victory card because you're not drawing any objective cards, so there's no reason to have that twist in there. So you have a normal deployment, normal twist, except the actual twist of the game is just double sudden death cards for both players. Achieve both, then you win the game. No flat normal objective. So that's a different way to play the game. It's actually not a bad. My thing with these is how did I not think about these? Like these are very cool ways to play the game with the open war cards, and it seems very basic rules. These got to be house rules that people come up with that have been suggested to Games Workshop, or at least house rules that Games Workshop themselves have used. Like these are great ways to play the game, and if you want even more random, you roll a d6, or I guess a d8. Or a d4. I should say d4. That makes more sense. You roll a d4 to determine which method you want to use for these open war cards. That pretty much covers the open war aspect of the cards. The next big thing we want to talk about is the random army generator. Now, first and foremost, with the open war army generator, it doesn't actually have to be open war. You can play this in literally any game mode, well, minus a tournament, unless the tournament enforces or they want you to use this, and that's kind of cool too. This can be used for anything. They only recommend open war because it's not perfectly balanced, which is what open war is kind of meant to be.
So when playing with the open war army size generator, you want to agree with your opponent how many power, the size of the game that both of you want to play with. And that really determines how long of a game that it's going to be taking. Now they do recommend, they have a little bit of a table of how many power that you should be playing. And it goes between 30, 60, and 90 power level. Now in the game that Luka and I played in the Vault, we decided to play roughly around 100 to 110 power level. Now that's more than the recommendation because we decided to play on points. Now you can't play on points if you want to because Luke and I, we played about 2,000 points.
Yeah, so again, that's that 100 power that Vito just mentioned.
Yeah.
But note that is going to take a long time to resolve.
It does, because you're generating based on a table that we will go into a little bit later. And that does take a long time to generate. So if this is something that you have maybe a couple hours with your friends to go through, this is something that you guys are going to go through.
I think it took me almost an hour to resolve mine. Maybe about 45 minutes. Yours was much quicker because you were Slanesh. I was Space Marines. But keep that in mind. We did 100 power. We did 2,000 points. About an hour and a half to resolve it for both of us. But I was doing it for the first time. So once you do it afterwards, it's a little bit quicker because you're meant to do it one unit at a time. Now the table itself is pretty basic. It has 36 different options because it's a D66 table. So you roll 1 die for the 10s, 1 die for the single digits. So you roll a 6 and a 4. The 6 was the 10, so you rolled a 64. You reference the chart here. An example, if I rolled a 64, I would have got the option to take 1 champion, 3 troops, 1 champion or 3 troops, or 1 heavy support or 1 elite. The higher you roll, the more options it gives you to add to your army. Now again, you do 1 roll, you pick that thing you want to add, and then you add it to your army. Now, when I reference champions or conquerors or troops or anything like that, that's a unit type it allows you to bring. So a troop is any unit in your army with a troop battlefield role. The same is true for elites, fast attack, and heavy support. A champion is a HQ slot that does not have the monster or vehicle keyword. A conqueror is what you'd expect. It is any HQ type, be it a monster or a vehicle. They have a couple swap outs allowed too if you want to. Instead of selecting a fast attack, you're allowed to choose a flyer slot instead. And instead of doing a heavy support, you could choose to do a Lord of War. Now in our game, we didn't have any flyers or Lord of War, so we didn't actually end up doing that.
Now there is one thing to note too, is that when you are selecting your units, one thing to keep in mind is for your larger units. So let's say, for example, if you take your troop option, you can make your troop options larger units. So for example, when Luke and I were playing, one of my troops is Demonettes. Actually, my only troop option is Demonettes. So they start off a unit of 10, but I chose to make them into squads of 30, which is the max that I can take. However, when you roll, for example, Luca, you said for 63, you can take a 1 champion unit or 3 troop units, 1 fast attack, or 1 elite. If I chose to take 3 troops, that means I can maximize all 3 to 30 demonettes, which means I have 90 right off the bat. However, if I continue to roll, I can continue to get more and more troops, which may or may not screw me later on in the game.
Exactly.
So you want to be very, very careful in where you're going to be choosing your units in your army generation. So be careful when you are selecting your army.
Also to note, because it recommends using the open war, you don't really use the detachments that much. But what we ended up doing was kind of dictating that, okay, if we can fill out a detachment with what we randomize, we'll be able to use that detachment and the command benefits of that detachment. So what that ended up doing for us is we're rolling and trying to make our detachments at the same time.
Right, it might be a spearhead, or it might be a battalion, or an outrider detachment.
Yeah, because as we're halfway through our armies, we were thinking, okay, well, I'm having a hard time getting that second HQ for the battalion, but I do have two fast attack choices.
Right.
So I'm going to try and shoot for that other fast attack choice if I can, and at least fill out the outrider. Also to note, if you do take those bigger units, like Vito said early on, you're really limiting the rest of the stuff you can get later on too. So again, remember, it's 1 unit at a time. So if you don't take your HQs early, you might not get them later on, and you might actually suffer greatly because of that. Yeah. It does have a pretty unique way of working as you play, though. This is probably my favorite aspect of it. There's 2 ways to go about your random army generator. You either do it beforehand, or you do it right there with your opponent. Now, the way this works is because you're supposed to do open war, you figure out your whole scenario, or say you're doing match play or eternal war, you figure out your whole scenario, and you don't figure out your army and put it to the side and tell your opponent what it is. You literally randomly generate your army and then deploy them 1 unit at a time. So say we're doing open war. The way that normally works is I deploy a unit, then you deploy a unit, until both players have deployed their armies, and then whoever deployed first gets to go first. I believe he uses the Age of Sigmar rules for that one. In the case of open war, say I'm deploying first. I would randomize the unit. I get troops. I'm Space Marines. I'll take a squad of scouts. I deploy the scouts here and now. And now it's Vito's turn. You randomize Seekers. You take Seekers, you deploy the Seekers, and you literally do that until you come to your agreed points limit. Or power. It uses power, but points are workable as well. Now, you don't stop at your power level. So say you agree to play 60 power and you're at 59 power, you don't actually stop there. You roll 1 more time until you've exceeded or matched or exceeded your power level limit. That's the same is true for your opponent. Now you can make a house rule and say that you have to take the cheapest possible thing, which I would probably enforce, because it's kind of lame if you're like 1 power under and you roll something that's like 10 power and like, but you could make it 2 power.
Right.
But you take the 10 power version of it. Probably shouldn't do that. But I guess your opponent could then just try and match that power level too. There's ways around it, but it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But it is fun. And I would highly recommend trying it at least once.
Now, another option that you can do is pre-army generation. Now, what you can do is, let's say, you're going to a friend's house and you guys want to play this game and you don't have hours and hours and hours to play. You can always pre-make your armies at home. Now, obviously, you have to trust your friends,
right,
so they can play accordingly. So you pre-make your armies and then you get together and boom, you already start rolling some dice and you start playing the game. Now, this is already not to be made for people who have gigantic armies. If you guys go into the vault, you'll see that Luka and I, we have trays and trays and trays of armies that we're selecting from. This is not meant for people who have gigantic collections. You can have a 2,000 point army and you can generate into even a 500 point army if you want to.
It's meant for lots of people, right? It works for lots of people in that regard. One of the misconceptions, I've seen a lot of people online saying things like, this is only meant for people with big collections. It's kind of alienating us in a way. It's not true. Not in any way, shape, or form. It works for literally everyone. Unless you really hate 500, 750 point games, then maybe it's not for you. But again, like I said earlier, this book, not meant for everyone. Now, another method that I've seen float around online, I can't remember where I've seen it, so I can't give credit where credit's due, was a draft form. If you don't have this massive collection that you feel you need to have for this, you bring your 2,000 point army. You're ready to play a game. Maybe you're ready to go to your local game store and play a game, and then the other like 5 or 6 people that are there suggest, you know what? Let's try this new army generator out and generate our armies. But if you're all really close friends and you trust the other people at your local game store, you all put your entire collections on a big table in the middle, and you all randomly draft your army from everyone's collection. So say you roll 11 and you get 1 troop. Well, you can take a troop from your collection, or you can try to build your opponent's army. Say some people bring their entire armies with them when they go, right? So you have a lot of options in that regard. But again, you have to trust your friends and the people you play with, and you're not gonna really make a cohesive list in the end. You're gonna have like a weird like Chaos Space Marines allied with Tyranids, working with the Sisters of Battle, losing like narratively all over the place. But it is a potential fun way to play this random army generator. Everyone agrees to stop when they kind of calculate how many points are there collectively, and then you all agree to stop at a certain point when everyone's got like an army at like 60 power or whatever, something like that. And then you just go play your games. You play your open war games from there, and I think you could have a lot of fun doing that. So that's something I would recommend to consider if you have a tight-knit group like that.
And you get to try new things, new models, and new rules that you may not be able to play with.
Try before you buy. You never know. You might come across your friend's Tyranid army. You always thought about playing Tyranids, and then you have a lot of fun playing that one unit of Hormagaunts, like that entire game. Then you just go out and buy a Tyranid collection for yourself. Why not, right?
So that's all that we're going to be talking about open war, but now we are going to start talking about narrative play.
Which will bring us to the first bit of narrative stuff, Spearhead games. Now, Spearhead games are Games Workshop's take on Armored Warfare in Warhammer 40k. These next few narrative pages are all about resolving, I guess, those dreamed of armored warfare fights, right? You're thinking of like the major fights from World War II, right? And that kind of immediately resonates with you when you look at Warhammer 40k. So you're thinking of like Astra Militarum, Ultramarines, or any Space Marine chapter with tanks. This works best when you use armies that have a lot of ground tanks with treads and wheels, or I guess I don't know if a tank has wheels, but regardless, without the fly, knights work really well in this case too. So when you're playing a Spearhead game, you get 2 abilities right away. When you build your table, you have dangerous terrain and roads. Roads are things you determine on the map, right? So if you have like one of the Table War, GameMat.eu maps like that, they have a lot of roads built on them right away. So that's super easy right there. Easy and done. You have your roads you go on. If you finish a move, if you start a move on a road and finish your move on a road, you have to add 3 inches to your movement, I believe. Well, I guess not if you finish it, but if you start your movement on a road and you continue on a road the whole way, you go faster as tanks travel faster on roads. Also, dangerous terrain, if you advance and roll a 1, or no, what is it? Each time a model advances or charges through dangerous terrain on a 1, they take a mortal wound. That's kind of lame. I'd probably increase that one to something more like you take D6 mortal wounds or something devastating. Because if something's going to happen on a 6, well, think about 7th edition. Do you remember when your tanks went over dangerous terrain and you rolled a 1 and you were immobilized?
Oh, right, yes.
They lost a hull point and they couldn't move anymore.
Right.
So if
They're
you
just
wanted
stuck there.
Right. So, but a hull point was much different than losing 1 wound. Most tanks had 3 hull points, so they lost a third of their wounds. If you wanted to actually recreate that and have your vehicle lose a third of its wounds, maximum wounds, so say it's got 12 wounds, no matter how much damage it's taken, it takes 4 wounds right there, and if it has 4 or less, it's dead, it's a wreck. It could blow up. And then it's immobilized, it can't move anymore. And then you can implement your own rules about like self-repair. A lot of tanks and their crew are able to jump out and fix the treads and get it unstuck, right? But that could be hard. That could be like on a roll. I think, what was it in 7th edition? Was it a 6?
I believe so.
All right, so the crew would jump out, roll a 6 instead of doing anything, and then they would fix the tracks and repair the vehicle. I'd highly recommend implementing that rule into this, because dangerous terrain, taking a mortal wound on a 1 is not going to affect anything. It might affect like 1 game in 1,000. Also, with these Spearhead missions, you have your generic kind of narrative special rules, such as like orbital bombardment, dawn attack, all that stuff that Games Workshop has been throwing into their narrative missions. But with this, you have a few new key changes to the game. First and foremost, tank aces. These are famed tank commanders from all, like, you know, we have Longstrike from Tau, we have Kronos from the Ultramarines, I believe his name's Kronos. Now you have a 1 command point or 3 command point stratagem you're going to use for these missions. It's called tank aces. You get to make one of your tanks an ace for 1 command point, if it's just a normal vehicle. If it's Titanic, it costs 3 command points. You give it +1 to hit, so it increases ballistic skill. And you give it, I don't know if it's +1 to hit for shooting attacks. Is it +1 for add 1 to hit rolls for, no, until the end of the battle. So it's even better in close combat too.
Right.
Your tanks, when they roll things over, are +1 to hit. What else does it give them?
Bring me closer with my powers.
Right, yeah, bring me closer so I can hit them with my sword. I love that one. And then it also gives them a captain reroll aura, so every vehicle within 6 get to friendly vehicles within 6 get to reroll hit rolls of 1, and you can use the stratagem once per battle. Also, going along with this, you're probably wondering, well, if it's a tank-based mission, do I have to bring tanks? Can I bring infantry? Well, the answer is yes. At least half your unit, half of your units in your army rounding up have to have the vehicle keyword that isn't the flyer battlefield role. So no flyers going around. Like, we're talking about tanks on the ground. And I believe that thing, if you move on a road and you get extra movement, doesn't actually work if you have the flyer keyword. So like a Eldar hover tank doesn't actually get the extra movement as it going down the road, because it doesn't actually care if the roads are there or not.
There are some really cool other features. One of them is called Battle Zone Tank Graveyard. This one I really like. So what's really cool is one of them is called Unexploded Ordnance. So with this time is each time a unit advances, you have to roll a d6. And on a 1, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. I wish this was more.
You could always make it more.
Right. I mean, yeah, because it is more of like narrative stuff, you could always increase this. Suffers d6 mortal wounds or even 2d6. You could even make like, all depends on what the ordnance is.
Right.
Right? Because maybe there's a melt-a-bomb somewhere, right? Or maybe there's something over here, right? And, you know, an IED somewhere, right? So you could always make it as flavorful as you want. But I really like that as just unexploded ordnance all over the battlefield. Another one that's really cool is called Smoke Wreathed Wreckage. On a 4+ at the start of the game, all of the terrain you have to roll on a 4+, that is considered being on fire.
Yeah.
So you're literally fighting potentially while the entire board is on fire. All of that terrain that's on a 4+ is considered on fire, and it's considered as dangerous terrain, and you can't draw a line of sight through it. So that makes tank battles even more difficult, which I think is really cool, or else you'd have las cannons and missile fire and chain guns all over the place. So I really like that aspect.
It forces you to get close and dirty.
Yeah.
Right.
There's also really cool things about tanks, the Spearhead missions, and where you get more warlord traits that are really neat as well.
That would work for these kind of scenarios, right?
Yeah. Specifically
for these, and like I have 2 pages of stratagems too.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Again, they went full into this, and I applaud them for that, because Armored Warfare was a thing that like a lot of people wanted to do when they got into this hobby, and I got to imagine some of you are kind of disappointed. Now you have your Spearhead missions. You can have your friend who also got into a tank army, and you just do your tank fights. Also to note, when it comes, if you want to play a Battleforged game or a match play game, or have a Battleforged force, when it comes to the Spearhead and I think it's the Vanguard one, you gray out the required HQ. You can get your command points from those detachments just by filling them out without required HQs. That's also a nice little bonus as well. So you get some command points to use these 2 pages of stratagems they give you.
Going on to the next section of the book, we are going to go moving on to linked games.
Now, this is something you've maybe been doing at home for years already. So if you have been, kudos to you. These give you a template to use, essentially. Okay, sorry. If you're not familiar with what a linked game is, it's essentially playing a series of games in a row where one game affects the next game, and then that game, you get a boon, and then after that game, that'll affect maybe the final game or the next game. You'll determine how many games you want to play. It could be a series of like 18 games over a long period of time, right? But there's no overall winner until the very end where they tally up the objectives they've accomplished, the points they've accumulated, or you just make the last game the one that matters, and then one person can keep getting boons and keep kind of cascading the victories from the beginning. You're trying to tell a story, and that's what linked games are. Now, there's a large section on linked games in this book, and it's a lot of suggestion and recommendation, and it, like I said earlier, it gives you a foundation to start maybe a big event or something to do with friends. In this case, again, a foundation, a template. Take what you read here and apply it to how you want to play your games, or you can play one of their pre-built ones they have in here based off of the campaign recently in Vigilus, or kind of like a standard template one as well. An example would be Assault on the Scrap Cities. This one is best played with Imperium forces fighting against Orc forces at the start of the whole Vigilus Defiant thing. Now, it's not absolutely mandatory. You can literally twist this narrative to any way you want, assuming you have the armies to do so. In this case, you start off with a kill team game where the orcs and the Imperium forces are doing a much smaller skirmish. You're trying to defend the trenches as the Imperium player against the orc onslaught. As the force field of the city has gone down, the orcs are rushing in en masse, and the first thing they hit are the trenches. So you play a kill team game representing one of the smaller skirmishes in the trench. Obviously, there's a bunch of other battles going on in the trenches, but you're playing, or you're trying to focus on one of them in particular.
Now, they also give you some recommendations on what missions to play. For example, they give you the mission Sweep and Clear for Kill Team. Yeah. The Kill Zone mission that they recommend is the Wall of Martyrs. And I really like that they're saying, hey, this is what they recommend for you to play, because they've given you that kind of narrative. Now, let's say, for example, you're playing it and it doesn't really suit your playstyle, you can actually make it your own. Yeah. So I kind of really like that. And then they actually give you recommendations to play for the next game, which would be Warhammer 40,000. So they actually recommend for the outcome, in the next battle round, the winner has the first turn. You don't need to actually roll to see that. And they cannot seize the initiative. And if their army is battle-forged, they actually go ahead and get 2 additional command points. That's actually pretty cool.
It is really cool, and it's not so much that it's going to break the next game, but it's enough to make it feel like the kill team game mattered.
Right, yeah.
So again, the winner of the kill team game, albeit the Orcs or the Imperium, get those bonuses in the next game, which is a Warhammer 40k game, which again, they give you even more recommendations. They suggest you use the Wasteland Duststorm Battle Zone, which is from Vigilus Defiant, if you have that book already. And assuming you're playing this mission, you probably already have that book because, like, I don't know, why else would you want? I guess not why else, but chances are you probably have that book, or at least one of you have that book. And the Battle Outcome. Now, this is for the next game, which is the most important game. This is the one that actually determines the winner of that little kind of linked campaign you have there. It's going to be an apocalypse game, so you're playing a much bigger game. And you can play at any points level you want, by the way. It doesn't actually recommend any point level. You could play a 5,000 point game of Warhammer 40k if you wanted to for the second game, if you had a bunch of time. Though at that point, you should probably be playing apocalypse anyways, but regardless. If you win your Warhammer 40k game in this one, you get an extra in the next round. The winner generates 1 additional command asset each turn, which are the cards. And it suggests use Meat Grinder for the next mission. So when you're using the Sustained Assault rule, the winner's opponent cannot make any reinforcement rolls for their Titanic units, and their -1 rolls on everything else. Essentially, they got crippled so much in the 40k game and the ensuing battles around that they're not performing as well in the Apocalypse game afterwards. And the winner of the Apocalypse game, like I said, wins the overall campaign.
It allows you to get more and more invested into the games that you're playing instead of just the standard, let's throw some dice and whatnot. Right. So it allows you to get more invested in the games that you're actually playing and telling a really neat story.
And the most important thing to remember, if you are going to be the mediator at any of these linked events or these linked game events, it's super important to have each game matter, but not have such a critical weigh-in on the next game. You want the first one to matter, but you don't want it to automatically dictate the winner of the next game. And if you're not a fan of your opponent getting any bonuses over you in any way, shape, or form, I don't think narrative missions are for you. And I guess if you're that kind of person, you probably already skipped past this part. So, I mean, if you're watching now, you're probably interested in that kind of stuff. In my opinion, I think narrative is the best way to play Warhammer 40K. That's what it was originally made to do. Back when Rogue Trader came out, it was a role-playing game. And then from there, it has evolved. People wanted it to be more competitive, but they always kept that narrative take on it. I've always been a bigger fan of the narrative stuff. Even like the loosest narrative I'm happy with. Usually when I'm playing any match play game with a guest or with one of the content producers here, I put the slightest, in my mind, I might not mention it, the slightest narrative on the game. And I'm like, I'm happy with that. I'm more than happy with stuff like that. And then there's another one here, War of Nightmares, which is Chaos versus Imperium, which is later on in the Vigilus conflict. And that's pretty much all they give you for there. But they give you 2 other ones to use, which are like more of a base template. Here's what we recommend you do for the battle outcome. This is the mission we want you to play, and then play this next one, play this next one.
It can be played with any type of armies that you have with you or your friends.
Right. There's not as strict of a narrative tied to it. You can create your own narrative for that. So if you're organizing an event, you can draw a lot from these as well, or at least look at them and get an idea of how these linked games work in the end. Because I think at first, like the stuff they kind of give you right away can be a little daunting because they hit you with a lot of information right away. It's like 3 pages of text. Just like lots and lots of text, so it can get a little monotonous to read all of that, and it could be a little straining, kind of forget the information you're reading before. But I think they did a good job on giving the examples of the linked games as well. This actually has a lot to do with an idea I have for Battlefleet Gothic. I've recently gotten into Battlefleet Gothic, and I wanted to link games with Battlefleet Gothic and Warhammer 40K and Kill Team. I have them all written down on a little notepad, but I can draw a lot of information from this book now and help myself improve those games even more so there. So, you know what? This is a great asset to use. Also, there's like 4 more examples of how to link Kill Team games and 40K games and Apocalypse games without an actual template. So even more information for you to use at home.
There's also a really cool idea that they've incorporated called challenge missions. So what is a narrative challenge mission? So what these are is almost think of them as your last stands. Now, they don't have to be last stands.
That's probably the go-to one, though.
The go-to one. So imagine, for sake of argument, you have a group of Marines who need to detonate a bomb on the bridge, but they need to, take away the attackers, and they need to, that's their last stand, is to detonate the bridge and, take away all the incoming Eldar from stopping them. That could be one narrative way of doing that mission. And you can really create your own challenges within this version of narrative challenge missions.
The idea with these ones are, if you are the one under duress, you're the one at a disadvantage, you're probably not going to win these. That's the whole point of them.
It's to test your mettle as a narrative player.
Right, and if you're doing like a last stand one, you can be a little competitive with your friends and see who can like last the longest with whatever force they brought. Just like literally endless hordes of orcs, and you just keep going until you lose, or to see how long you can go. They have 3 missions that you can use as templates for this one. You can also branch out and go at other places like Vito's suggestion, trying to plant a bomb on a bridge. That's not one of the missions, but it's a great idea. You can use Zone Mortalis for that, right? Yeah. There's so many things you can do there. They have ways to create your own narrative challenge mission plot hooks and ideas. There's a lot of them. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 right there you can draw from, in addition to the own creative ones you come with. They have Last Stand, which is your go-to. We had mentioned that. This is the one where you're Death Watch, holding off orcs. Yeah. Your forces have been crippled. There's been more orcs than you could imagine. There's only 20 of you left, and you have to wait for the Stormbird to come in and pick you up, but you have to live. Right. And you're getting surrounded by orcs, right? That's the idea of this one.
And what's really cool too is they even give you stratagems both for the attacker and the defender.
Right. Again, kind of going along with the narrative missions they've had in the past, stratagems adding a lot of flavor to them, eating up a lot of your command points, which is good because then you get to use them on cool things rather than just rerolls and stuff like that. The next template they give you is Headhunters. This is one where you're at an extreme disadvantage, albeit points-wise, or you're limited on certain units you can bring. Like say your opponent's allowed to bring like tanks and flyers and a whole assortment of a combined arms force, and you're stuck to only troops in one HQ. So obviously heavily limited there. Your supplies have been cut off, right? You don't have support from artillery anymore. And your goal in this one is to take out the enemy leadership while at an extreme disadvantage. Because if you can take out their HQs, surely their force will buckle. And you can use forces to represent that, like orcs without bosses, right? Orcs without bosses kind of fall apart and they squabble amongst themselves. And they don't really know what to do. So that's a great example of an enemy army to be using there. And I think the last one was domination. So throughout the course of the battle, this mission starts already halfway in. Your force has been losing, and you're being completely surrounded, and you're being pushed into this kind of kill zone. Now the goal for you is to push back, get this moment of heroism, break through the enemy line somewhere, focus your forces, and escape through there and take over the table again. That's probably the hardest one to do. But it's cool that you can do something like that.
Something that's really interesting as well with each one of these missions is they have their own challenge rating in terms of winning. So you can really challenge your buddies, egg them on to see who can be the best amongst yourselves. And each one of them is different. So for example, The Last Stand, if you can make it all the way, for example, to battle round 6, you get a 4 stars. If you make it all the way to battle round 7, you get 5. So you can always try to challenge yourselves and your friends further and further to see who can get the max score.
To do better and better. And the other missions have their own built-in challenge conditions as well, based on how well you do in victory points. You get more stars, all that stuff. I think you had mentioned this is like COD Zombies. In a way.
It's kind of like that. I mean, the different games always change amongst themselves. And I think even the last one, which is Domination, because it's separated into 4 different quadrants. If you have units in each one of those quadrants, you get 4 victory points. But then if your general's alive, you get 5, which is the max that you can get in that game.
So you as the person at a disadvantage is trying to get as much stars as you could possibly get, and you can like tally them up if you're doing like a Warhammer 40K, I guess not last stand. What were these called? Challenge Mission League. A Challenge Mission League you could literally do, and that's a different take on the game, and it's nothing but really awful, depressing scenarios your army is in literally all the time. And you could swap the rules too, right? If you have big enough collections or you play at smaller points, you could have like a guy with orcs is going to be the guy assaulting you in Last Stand, and then all of a sudden the guy with the orcs is the one surrounded in domination against the Imperial Space Marines marching in, gunning them down with their bolt guns and seeing if the orcs can break through or not. It's a great take on the game, and I'd highly recommend checking any of these out because they can be pretty competitive too. But with the fact that one player is clearly at a disadvantage, but to see what they can do with that disadvantage is the whole goal of it. Finally, this review brings us to match play games. Well, after this, we're going to talk about points a little bit and the bigger points changes that we thought happened, but we're going to cover match play stuff. New Battlefronts. First page of the match play book covers all of the match play rules that are in addition to the core rules of Warhammer 40K, and I'm at a glance, I could be wrong, well, we could be wrong here, none of them have really changed, which is okay, but I'm a little disappointed because prepared positions is the exact same, and I would have liked to see that not be 2 command points. Now, I don't know if people argue about this. I have my own mindset of what I would like this game to be for the second player. Now, in a lot of the Eternal War missions, or a lot of these match play missions, it is advantageous to go second because you get the final say when it comes to victory points, right? You get to know that no matter what, if I shoot that guy off of that objective, he won't be able to score that at the end of the battle round. There is power to that, but a lot of like competitive games can be overturned if there's not enough terrain on the board, so therefore not really able to get that much cover or hide behind. And if that's true, that's just a shame. I would like to see prepared position. I myself, these are 2 things I would love to see invoked in match play. Now this might be a little harsh, so take what I say with a grain of salt, and you can just call me an idiot because I could be wrong. I would like to see prepared positions be free, or at least be 1 command point. So free is easy because it's always going to be used no matter what. Now, these new match play missions have someone be the attacker and the defender, which means that you could argue that not all the time is the defender in a prepared position. You could spend the command points to ensure they are. That's fine. I would like to see at least be 1, or like only cost 1 on a 4-up or something. I don't know. I guess at that point everyone would use it, or maybe not. It doesn't really matter. Make it not 2, because cover is huge sometimes. A lot of the time, it really isn't. A lot of high AP in these much nastier games, or like just so many attacks that cover won't really matter all that much. It's not like it used to be last edition.
Especially with, sorry to interrupt you, but especially with like the advent of doctrines.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Space Marines do not care about cover, especially Imperial Fists. Especially.
So yeah, I mean, especially giving that to other armies, I can see why spending that 2 command points really wouldn't be that beneficial.
And a lot of these Xenos armies have bad armor saves to begin with, and they rely heavily on invulnerable saves. So giving them cover is not that big of a deal.
My demons.
Demons are a great example.
Yes.
Like, okay, do you remember like last edition when cover was just a flat 4-up save if you're in ruins, or a flat 5-up save otherwise? Like Plague Bears had Shrouded built in as a rule, so if they were in cover ruins, it had a 2-up cover save. So unless you ignored cover, they always had a 2-up save. Now, a lot of you I know a lot of people didn't like 7th edition. Actually, maybe not true. I could be wrong there. But I like 7th edition a lot more. I still like 8th edition, but I feel like 7th edition was as a core rule set, was a great game. Now, when you added all the books in and all that stuff from the Xenos armies, it broke the core rules of the game. There's no point in playing the game when every book in the game literally ignores every core rule of the game, or you get free units.
Right.
Because Space Marines got free transports, and the AdMech War Conclave got all their weapon upgrades on everything were free. Didn't have to pay for those. So that's great. Yeah, it's a wonderful time that was. Regardless, that all came off of a tangent from Prepare Positions. I want to see Prepare Positions be at least 1. So I was disappointed to see that as still 2. Still has time to change. Another harsh thing I like to invoke is the first battle round of the game. I would like to see both armies have to count every model in their army counts as moving its maximum distance.
Oh.
Even though they don't move.
Really?
So things like a Lehman Russ battle tank never gets to shoot twice right away because it's grinding advance roll. If you don't ignore moving and firing heavy weapons, you're -1 to hit with all your heavy weapons, if you choose to move or not. And there's probably a couple of other things I can't quite think of right now. I think I took that rule from bolt action. I believe that's a bolt action rule, or maybe it's only the first player who suffers that, but I think it'd be a little too crippling to go first. To Prepare Positions was 1 or free, and that the player who went first has counted as moving with everything. Maybe that's not too harsh. Maybe that's the way it should go. But that's pretty much it. I think everything else is fine. The tactical reserves, the strategic discipline, the psychic focus, all that's still here. All that's the exact same. The main changes to these new match play games are, is it 6 new Eternal War missions?
I think it looks like it, yeah.
The 4 pillars is the same from last time. I think they've added 2 new ones, and they've took 2 old ones and kept 2 of the ones from last chapter approved, which is fine. Eternal War missions are your most balanced missions for match play because there's no random variant to it. It's very much under your control as the player. But if you want to change it up, they got the Schemes of War now, the Maelstrom of War.
These are incredible.
We're probably going to talk about these a lot because that's what interests us the most. So if you're not interested in that, we'll talk about Eternal War first and then move on to Maelstrom of War. You can just skip the Maelstrom of War part, but they've remade it from the ground up.
So we are going to be introducing and talking about one of the brand new Eternal War missions. This is brand new to the Chapter Approved 2019. It is called Lockdown. This is really, really cool. Both Luke and I think we really like this one. Yeah. It's a little complicated, but once we start talking about it, you're going to understand the nuances and wrap your head around it. So Luca, take it away.
It had both of us confused kind of right away.
But then once we started talking out loud, we're like, okay, this makes total sense.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. You have to read it for a little bit. It's a new one. It's this one and Crusade, which are the new ones. The other ones are from previous editions of Chapter Approved. I guess the most successful ones. But with Lockdown, I can definitely see myself enjoying this one because I do like it's Eternal War. This one actually might poison you a little bit if you're into the not random factor because this one is the one random Eternal War. I guess they're all kind of random in their own way. Anyways, with Lockdown, you determine attacker defender as normal. So one player is the attacker, one player is the defender. That's new terminology. The defender is the person. So you do your roll-off, and the winner of the roll-off determines to be the attacker or the defender. The attacker, if you want to be the attacker, the defender is the person that randomly determines the deployment map and picks a side first. And then the attacker is the person who deploys his army first, and then the defender deploys, and then the attacker can choose to go first or second. That's all that matters for there. It's the exact same way it worked before. They just use terminology now, which clarifies it a little bit instead of like this player and then that player. With this one, you put down 6 objective markers, following the normal rules, so no more than within 12 another objective marker, no more than 6 at the table edge. And then before the first turn begins, before the first battle round, before the first turn begins, the player going first, after sees the initiatives and all that, picks one of the objective markers on the table that they want to label 1. And then the player going second in the battle rounds will pick an objective marker and label it number 6. Now, this is very important for the next parts of the game because at the start of every battle round, starting from the second battle round, you remove that corresponding objective marker. So 1 and 6 are locked in, and then for the other 4, you have to randomize them. So you randomly pick an objective, you roll it, bam, it's a 2, then 3, and then 4, and then 5. It doesn't really matter, they all have to have a separate number. So at the beginning of turn 2, before anyone does anything, you take objective marker number 2 off the table.
Gone.
Gone. Same is true for 3, 4, and 5. Until there's only 2 objective markers left. Now, technically 6 would be removed on 6, but because it is the second last remaining objective marker, it's not taken off the table. The way you score victory points in this one, pretty basic. You have the 3 standard secondaries: First Strike, Slay the Warlord, and Line Breaker. But you also have Target Secured as the main objective generating one for a primary objective. Each player scores a victory point at the end of each of their turns for each objective marker they control, following the normal rules for controlling objective markers, of course. And Dominance, which is a kind of like a tournament way of doing this. At the end of every battle round, you score a victory point. The player who has the most objectives scores a victory point. So if I had 4 and Vito had 2, I would get 1 extra victory point at the end of that battle round. It's variable, so it's 5 to 7 turns long, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. I was going to say that's like the standard Eternal War stuff. It's very basic. Get objectives, try and survive.
I think this one lends to people who want to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yes.
With grabbing the objectives. You really want to, I think, grab them early on because they're going to be disappearing early.
Right. You don't want to be a parking lot in the back. You picked your one objective, you're going to hide around that, whereas your opponent is something like Slanesh, who can just hit the entire table turn 1. They're going to win that game because they just got 6 victory points in the first turn, and you got 1. So right there's a huge discrepancy in points.
I can see this maybe being a little bit more difficult for Tau, unless you build one of those like
mobile Tau
forces. Yeah. But if you're going to do like this super, here's my castle Tau, bang, 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 bang,
right,
it might be a little bit more difficult.
Well, that's why I like these match play games a lot, because they do force armies like the Tau and the Astra Militarum to get out of their deployment zones, which is nice. It's actually been a long time since I fought an army that doesn't move.
Okay.
Because they're forced to move, right? Like the last time I was at a doubles tournament, and it was Tau and Orcs, and the Tau player just ended up sitting in the back while the Orc player took the field.
Okay.
So that's the last time I had to deal with that,
nice.
But it's still technically one cohesive force moving around. But that's why I like these missions a lot. And that's generally what you get with these new Eternal War missions. Like I said, if you're curious what the previous ones are that are back from previous editions, we have the 4 Pillars from 2018. We have Frontline Warfare from 2017. Ascensions from, it actually has little notes here. Ascensions from 2017, and Scorched Earth is also from 2017. But Scorched Earth has been rewritten to be a little bit better. There's always 2 in every player's deployment zone, and there's always 2 in neutral zones. So there's 6 on the table, 2 in your territory, 2 in my territory, and 2 in no man's land. And that's the one where you burn objectives and get points. And now they're worth 3 victory points if you burn them instead of D3. It's actually my favorite scenario in any match play game, because love it in Age of Sigmar, love it in 40K.
So now we are going to be talking something really exciting of a Maelstrom of War and a brand new way to play called Schemes of War. So this is something brand new that they've introduced. So normally when you're playing Maelstrom of War, you have a deck of 36 cards, and you have to, get to shuffle those 36 cards, and you get to remove, I believe it was 6 cards?
It was a refined strategy. Didn't force you. You could take up to 6 cards.
Up to 6 cards. Now with this new Schemes of War, you get to build your deck however you want. And I think this is really exciting.
Yeah.
Luke and I, we actually get to do this in the Vault game that we just played. So when you get to build your deck, you get to make a deck of up to 18 cards. Minimum of 18 cards. You can have a deck of any size that you want, up to 36.
Yeah.
But minimum size of 18 cards.
Abso-freaking-lutely, yes, we were going to do that for the Vault game. I've always been a big advocate of Maelstrom of War, because I've said it lots of times before, I love anything random by nature, kind of like that reactionary playstyle, like, okay, well, I'm going to do this, but first let's see the cards. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go do this instead. A lot of people actually have a distaste about that, and I understand, of course. You're playing a game that's already very random in nature, so why make it more random? That's just up my alley. Now, if you don't like Maelstrom of War, I bid you to at least try this out one more time, because the way it works now is that, as Vito said, you construct, essentially you get to take, instead of taking out 6 cards, you can take out up to 18 cards now, but they word it in a way where it makes you seem like you get to make your own deck. You're not allowed to include duplicates of anything, so you're still stuck with the 36 cards, because there's no more, unless they plan on releasing new cards. Maybe more neutral cards, because there's technically only 30 neutral cards, because you're supposed to use your army-specific Maelstrom of War cards, unless you're doing something like ETC or, I guess ITC doesn't. ETC uses Maelstrom missions, but they don't use the generic army-specific ones. They use the score 1 to 16 or 1 to 6 twice.
Gotcha.
So I'm curious, actually. I want to know if ETC would use this new Schemes of War mechanic, because the ETC just has you draw 3 cards every turn and score them. The way this works, I've rambled enough. You have your deck of 18 cards. I'd always recommend building a smaller deck, because that way you kind of get what you want, right? With this, it's It takes out a lot of that random nature, and you can actually build a deck narratively around your army now. So say you're playing Death Watch and you want to purge the Xenos. You're fighting Xenos, you literally throw in all the kill stuff cards. I don't care about securing objectives. I'm literally here to wipe them off the face of this planet or this ship or wherever you're fighting them. This is a standard template rule that you use for the next, or for all 6 of the Maelstrom of War missions, the Schemes of War. It's not like before where you get to draw different amounts of cards based on the mission you were playing. You don't draw. You have a hand of 5 now. So you have your deck of cards, and at the start of the game, both players draw 5 cards from the top of their deck. This is your hand. It is secret from your opponent. You're allowed a mulligan, which is a term, which means you can take, if you don't like any of the 5 cards in your hand, you throw them to the bottom of your deck. They're not discarded, and you draw 4 new cards. You can do this once for free. There are ways to augment your hand, cycle out your hand for command points throughout the rest of the course of the game, because they added 3 new command point stratagems, which we'll get into in a moment. At the start of your player turn, with the cards you have in your hand, instead of drawing 3 cards as you would before to try to accomplish, you take 3 cards from your hand and you put them down, and you say, I want to accomplish these 3 objectives this turn. You're allowed to put 1 face down. They word it oddly. It says you can choose to put them face down or face up, and then the next paragraph it says only one of your cards, or at least 2 of your cards have to be face up, I believe. Sorry, it's no player can have more than 1 face down card. So essentially, you're allowed to have 1 card face down as a secret from your opponent. And once you put your 3 cards down, you draw your hand back up to 5. Now, there are missions that augment the amount of cards you draw into your hand. The mission we played, I believe it had it so if you controlled more objectives than your opponent, before you put objective cards down from your hand, you're allowed to draw 1 new card. And we ended up rolling that mission up, which is fine. I actually prefer that because it's not, I enjoy little minor changes to the core rules, not very drastic changes, so I'm very happy with these Maelstrom of War missions.
Well, what I like about this too is that before it was, you drew your cards, these are the objectives that you have to achieve. So if you already had your battle plan already figured out, now the cards are dictating your battle plan. So it may kind of screw up your generalship, but now you are
in control, right?
You are in control of the driver's seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
And because you get to, after you play your 3 cards on your turn, you get to immediately see what you draw. And again, those are secret from your opponent, so you already get to plan out your next turn.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm guaranteed to be able to accomplish these 2. That one's going to be a stretch, so I'm going to have 2 free slots open to be able to put down 2 new cards next turn. You can only ever have 3 down unless the mission changes that up. You get to kind of spend, the games will be quicker too. That way, instead of planning something out and then seeing what you draw and then having to think of a new plan, you think of a whole new plan while your opponent is doing their turn, because you know what cards you're going to put down. For the most part, your opponent might do some weird movement, maybe leave an objective open. Oh, I can go snag that now, so I'll go play that objective down and stuff like that. Also, one core change is at the end of every turn, every one of your turns before, you got to discard one of the cards you didn't want to do. So say you put down a risky card, you're like, maybe I can get this, maybe I can't. So you put it down, and then turns out you can't do it on that turn. Maybe you can do it on your opponent's turn. So what they have now as a rule is at the end of every morale phase, so every player's morale phase, you can choose to discard a card instead of just at the end of your turn. So it doesn't punish you for putting down risky cards. So put down like a defend card, and you're like, okay, I'm going to try and defend this objective. So I did it on my turn, obviously no problem. And then you come in flying, you deep strike something in to try and stop me from defending something, and you unfortunately make that charge and kill off my unit. Well, I'm not going to be able to defend that objective anymore. So at the end of my opponent's morale phase, I can say, you know what, I'm not going to get that at all. I'm going to discard that now. So it's a lot of flexibility between both armies now. Another nice addition here is they start using, well, maybe they did before, but they're using very clear terminology here when it comes to discarding and drawing and playing tactical cards and all that stuff. The next thing to note here is whenever you score a card, albeit you might be able to score it on your opponent's turn, it actually clarifies that. A lot of people out there didn't play the defend cards that you could score them on your opponent's turn. You had to hold them for 2 of your own consecutive turns. So you get to score it on if you held it for your turn and your opponent's turn. It's 2-player turns. Now it says in parentheses, it says yours and your opponent's. You must check to see if you score objective cards and all that stuff. And if you achieve an objective card, it is discarded into a discard pile. So it's very clear terminology there, and that's important for these stratagems.
So as Luka had mentioned before, there's actually 3 new stratagems that you can use to kind of, I don't want to say fudge with your deck, but kind of manipulate it a little bit to see what cards that you can use to get the advantage kind of on your opponent. So there's 3 brand new ones. For 2 command points, you can use reprioritize. So use this strategy at the start of your turn, discard up to 2 tactical objective cards from your hand and draw new tactical objective cards for each card that was discarded. So it's, you're kind of searching through your deck to see what cards are more beneficial for this turn or for the upcoming turns ahead.
Exactly. It's like you do your first turn, you throw down your 3 cards, you accomplish, or then you draw 3 new cards, and 2 of those are absolutely impossible to do anytime soon, and the other 3 cards aren't that great. Or you spend 2 command points, get rid of those 2 you just discarded. And they're actually discarded, so you can't get them again unless you use another stratagem, which we'll talk about in a moment. Yeah. And then you just draw 2 new cards.
So that next stratagem is for 1 command point, and it's called Tactical Foresight. So use this stratagem at any point during your turn. You can look at the top 3 cards of your objective deck and choose to put each back on either the top or the bottom of the deck in any order. You can only use this stratagem once per turn.
So once per turn, you can use that at the end of your opponent's turn. If anyone out there plays Magic the Gathering, that's scrying like word for word, pretty much, which is an incredibly powerful mechanic in there. In fact, a lot of the like modern or standard, a lot of that, I think it was mostly modern. A lot of the cards that let you scry were all banned because there's just too much information. There's just they cost no mana. They're very cheap. They're at instant speed. You can do whenever you want. It's kind of the same thing here. So at the end of your turn, after I see everything you can do, and you kind of screwed up my plan for my cards in my hand, I'm like, okay, well I'm going to scry and reprioritize, and like so you can scry first. You can spend 3. It's expensive to do for 3 command points. You get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You can put them back in any order you want, or if you don't like any of them, you put them on the bottom of your deck and then reprioritize. Yeah. And then you get rid of 2 cards in your hand that you're not going to do this turn. You draw 2 new cards that you need right away. That's a 3 command point combo. Very powerful.
It's also, I mean, it's a lot of command points to use.
Lot. It is a lot.
So you really want to prioritize your reprioritize.
Right. That's where the balance comes in and the cost of those. I think Tactical Foresight on its own, if you're just scrying every turn, can be very powerful. Because if you have okay cards in your hand, you can kind of ensure that you're going to kind of keep getting okay cards every draw. Yeah. I'd recommend probably using that every turn. Ironically, I had mentioned this in the battle report, and I have yet to use it. Because this happens all the time. It's like, how this stratagem is so good, I'm going to use it every turn. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't use it every turn. And then my first turn happens, I'm Space Marines, and then I use a bunch of stratagems right away. I'm like, oh, I forgot I'm Space Marines. I like to blow all my stratagems right away. And like, I have no self-control when it comes to this. Oh, geez, I really can't afford to be using that Tactical Foresight right now. I need my stratagems for this. So I haven't used it. Maybe I'll, like, maybe. The last one is Determined Push. This one, I can't remember what this one does. Use it at any point during the turn. Select up to 3 objective cards from your oh, that's right. This is a really good one.
This is a great one.
Yeah. So in this, obviously, if you have 18 cards in your deck, it's very likely you're going to burn through a lot of them, albeit through reprioritizing, discarding from your hand, or just achieving a lot of them, and your opponent's achieving a lot of them too, so you have high-scoring games. And if you brought less cards than your opponent and you run out first and you're at the same kind of point level, you're in a bad spot. But with Determined Push, you can spend 2 command points and you pick up to 3 cards from your discard pile and put them back into your deck. And then you have to shuffle up your deck. But I mean, if you have 0 cards in your deck and you put those 3 cards in there and you have like no cards in hand, or you're going to draw 3 cards, or you're just going to draw those exact same 3 cards you put back into your deck. You don't automatically lose the game if you're out of cards in your deck. It's not Magic, but you get to put, and you get to, like, obviously if it's like, say you killed their Warlord already, you put Slay the Warlord back in there for an extra D3.
Right.
Or if you have like Supremacy, you put Supremacy back in there. Or for whatever reason you're dominating the table and you have Domination, you put Domination back in there.
Right. This reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you ever played like Pokemon, the card game, or Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's like you can use like Synchro Summoning, or you can use other cards to get more cards back from your graveyard, putting them back in, and then you're just throwing down monsters all over.
Exactly.
That's what that reminds me a lot of.
I just thought of a good combo, actually. So priority orders received. I don't normally like that one, but that works really well if you have a short deck. So say you have a Warlord still on the table, and priority orders received, you get bonus command or victory points if your Warlord does the one specific thing. So say your Warlord's done his job, he's not really doing anything, he's standing on objective number 2. Well, you could, from your discard pile, you take objective number 2 and priority orders received, and you put them back in your deck and you draw them, and you automatically get 4 victory points.
Right, oh yeah.
Because you automatically dictate, they have new rules for priority orders received, where you get to control which objective goes down on top of it now, instead of it being very random. A lot of the randomness of Maelstrom of War has been taken out, but it's got the exact same feeling. And that is, I think they've done a masterful job on this. In our game, we had a bunch of fun playing it. I'd highly recommend anyone who hasn't liked it before to try it out again. I couldn't recommend it more. Yeah. All right, that's going to sum up the Maelstrom of War stuff. We could go into the missions, but you get the meat of it out of the new Schemes of War rule. The Maelstrom of War missions just kind of augment that slightly in their own way, which I prefer. Now we're going to move on to the more point-oriented and data sheet-oriented stuff. Or there's a misprint, or I believe it's a misprint for the data sheets. We're going to go over that. Not that big of a deal. And then we're going to be talking about the points in the Munitorum field manual here. So this is obviously very similar release to the General's Handbook from Age of Sigmar, where they gave you a pitch battle profile book alongside the General's Handbook. So there's just 2 separate books. I guess less weight if you don't care about the point book that much because of third-party apps and all that stuff. Anyways, the misprints in the General's Handbook, they have new data sheets in here for, I don't know if it's new rules, but it's just like, so you don't have to carry around the in the box build rules for like the Keeper of Secrets.
Yeah, so when the Keeper of Secrets, Celeste, the Fiends, they kind of got the new models.
Yeah.
They came with new rules because they had all the old rules and things like that.
Right.
So they kind of updated them, in here in the new chapter approved. So Luke and I, because I was playing Slaanesh, decided, hey, why not use the rules that are in here instead of using the instructions to come in the box themselves. So we actually noticed that there's a bit of a misprint that actually comes in here. So with Shalaxi, because it was the first time I decided to take Shalaxi, hopefully, because we had to do the random roll. And funny enough, the very first roll that I got was boom,
Conqueror.
The Conqueror.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm going to take Shalaxi because I want to.
Right.
Something I actually just decided to paint up the night before. So boom, I decided to take Shalaxi. And so in the little box above
The
where
damage table box,
her data sheet, it says, remaining wounds, movement, attacks, and then snapping claws. Because with snapping claws, it says when the bearer fights, it can make a number of additional attacks with the weapon equal to the number shown in the damage table. So that's something that's really important to note. However, if we go to the Keeper of Secrets, it's supposed to say that in the exact same table, but it doesn't. What it does say is it has remaining wounds, it has movement, it has strength, and then it has attacks.
Yeah.
With strength, the strength actually degrades, its movement degrades, but it has 2 less movement
Than Shalaxi.
and
it did before.
Than it did before, because before, both Shalaxi and the Keeper of Secrets had the exact same movement, and they had the exact same weapon profiles.
Yeah.
So both Luke and I believe that, and it was a consensus with the office abroad, that this is a misprint because there is no option for snapping claws within the box above.
But what throws me off the most, so they, like Vito said, the snapping claw should be there. So the snapping claw rule still says under the Keeper Secrets, reference the amount of attacks it has on the table. It doesn't have snapping claws listed there anywhere, so it would be technically 0. The Keeper Secrets base attacks get affected as it goes down, and so does its strength. Now, the one thing you think, okay, well, if the strength is a type and it's supposed to be snapping claws, you look over at the Keeper Secrets characteristic profile over there, and the S, or under the strength, it's got the little notation there saying, look at the damage table. So it's like obviously it was meant to be strength, but at the same time, not supposed to be strength. I don't know, because it's obviously a misprint, I think, but I can't even think of what that damage table would be for anything else because it's referencing 16 wounds versus the Keeper of Secrets. The lower movement's kind of weird. I'm not too sure. So
you actually get more attacks with the snapping claws as opposed to Shalaxi's of 4.
Well, yeah,
than 6, but this is definitely a misprint.
Well, I'm almost certain like that's not supposed to reference the snapping claws.
No,
at all.
not
That's
at all.
supposed to reference that.
Her normal attacks.
So I'm not too sure what the issue there is. I would recommend just using Shalaxi Hellbane's damage characteristic profile, the little box over there, because that would accurately represent the Keeper of Secrets. Though the Keeper of Secrets is meant to go down to 12 movement, I don't know. I don't see why it would go down while Shalaxi stayed the same.
Because Shalaxi is just a named version of the actual Keeper of Secrets.
She has her own rules built in.
She has her own rules based in. She's base 6 strength, which a normal Keeper of Secrets is. Base toughness, same wounds,
all that.
Same leadership, same weapon skill, they're all the same except for the weapon that she's equipped with and a little bit of different rules.
Right. So what we opted to do in our game is that we just use her characteristics and then use the following rules for the Keeper and all that stuff. That's pretty much it for the typos, though. At least the ones that we noticed. We didn't look too deeper into the other ones because we didn't really use them that much. And none of that stuff's relevant to me because I don't play any of those armies. They're mostly relevant for Vito and his Slaanesh army. Now, that was it for the reprint. Now we're going to talk about what we think the most relevant point changes in this book, the Munitorum Field Manual, are. The first and foremost, 0 point changes for Space Marines as a whole, minus the like Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and Space Wolves. But like we're talking like the new Space Marines in the book. I think people were a little concerned that they get point drops just because it's all about the Space Marines right now. Rest assured, Space Marines are just as powerful as they were before. They did not get any weaker, nor did they get any stronger. They will still, I guess, act as the Imperial Tyrants they were before. All right, so we're not going to cover every little point change because a lot of them are just like named characters went down a little bit of points here or there. Maybe that one unit went down 2 points. No one's going to use it still kind of thing. First and foremost, we're going to talk about Dark Angels here because, one, we maybe could have read it wrong, and Steve was very excited for this, but Warhammer community had made a post saying that Chapter Approved is going to include new rules for Dark Angels. I can't remember if that's what it was word for word.
It was kind of implied.
Right.
I mean, that could be wishful thinking on a lot of people's part.
Could have been. But everyone here, well, at least Steve was under the impression it's going to be like Doctrine, because we've seen that Blood Angels got new doctrines in the Blood of Baal, I believe the book is called, Psychic Awakening 3. So that obviously gives away that Dark Angels and Space Wolves are probably going to get their own version of combat doctrine sometime in the future, which is great. All Space Wolf and Dark Angel players rejoice. But Dark Angel players, much like the Horus Heresy, you're going to be left waiting because there's nothing here. Much like Dark Angels were promised to be in Book 8, they are not in Book 8. They are not in Chapter Approved either. So if any of you read that note and got very excited, no new rules for Dark Angels whatsoever in this book. They're not new data sheets, no combat doctrines, not a thing. I'd expect maybe Psychic Awakening later on in the book, or at least afterwards. I think Space Wolves, I don't know if this is official or not, but I think Space Wolves were mentioned in book 4 or 5 for Psychic Awakening. I don't even know if that was a rumor or not. So don't take what I said there with a grain of salt for sure. Like that could be a lie 100%. Now what Dark Angels did get was okay point reductions, mostly in the name characters across the board got dropped. So Samael on Sableclaw and Corvex are both drastically cheaper. In fact, on Corvex is 43 points cheaper, which is a huge drop on that. Asmodai's down 20, Azrael's down 30, Belial's down 25, Ezekiel's down 25 as well. So you're actually going to see a lot of that for name characters across the board for Space Marines. Like Space Wolves got some nutso drops too on points for their named characters. We have a lot of the Deathwing stuff and
got some pretty decent drops there.
Yeah, we have the Ancient going down 38 points. Well, I guess it's Deathwing. It's not going to be that relevant. We'll go over it anyways, but people aren't going to bring this stuff anyways. The Deathwing Ancient's down 38 points, which is kind of a big deal. He's not 100 points anymore, which is great. We have 5 points on the Apothecary, 28 on the Deathwing Champion. Deathwing Knights are down 2 points a model, which is nice. And then Raven Wing, the single model characters also went down drastically in points, about 30 to 40 points each. That is the Ancient Apothecary and the Champion for the Raven Wing stuff. And that's pretty much it for them, minus... Okay, that's not true. I forgot about this stuff over here.
The fast attacks.
The fast attacks and the flyers. Both the Nephilim and the Ravenwing flyers both went down 33, 32 points respectively. In fact, the Jet Fighter's base 90 now, with its war, not including its war gear. And then we have Ravenwing attack bikes. I think they went down 2 points. What we have noted here, could have done miscalculations though, so went down 2 points with 25 base. The bike squad's down to 21 now instead of 23. We have the Black Knights at 34 instead of 38. These are without war gear. We have the Ravenwing Landspeeder down 5 points. And the big one was the Landspeeder Vengeance. Steve came in, was surprised to see that it went down 32 points. And then he proceeded to say he's still not going to use it. So without its war gear, it's 90 points. With its war gear, I think it's slightly over 100. Apparently it's not worth it, so says Steve. So I don't really know. I don't know Dark Angels all that much. But that's pretty much all you got for Dark Angel points changes, people. I'm terribly sorry. I know you wanted more. Be patient. The next biggest benefactor in the points reductions here would be the Space Wolves. I think they're probably one of the bigger ones, which is great. All Space Wolf players rejoice. Woof woof. The Vilka Fenrika, all that good stuff.
Especially for the characters.
Oh, wow. Yes. But yeah, Space Wolves are all about their named characters and their sagas, right? Their deeds of legend. Now the named characters are reasonable to bring. In fact, like Harold Deathwolf went down 53 points. Or is that 33 points? It's one of the two. He's
53.
Yeah, I think it's 53 points. He went down.
I was trying to look at my writing. I'm like, yeah, that's a 5.
Yeah, because that was Vito that wrote that one. So he went down. He was 135 points now. Just base cost. That's a reasonable point level to pay for a character, folks. No one wants to pay over 180 points for this guy who's not that great. No one is bringing him. Now you can bring Deathwolf again and not feel so bad. You can bring more Marines now if you're bringing him to your list. Things to note here, I do want to cover most of them because Bjorn went down 30 points. Battle Leader went down 5 points, I believe. The Primaris Rune Priest went down 3. Now, these could be if they were more points than the old Primaris stuff, like a Primaris Wolf Priest being 3 points more, they were brought in line with the rest of the Primaris stuff. So across the board, all the Primaris characters, if they were more points, they're back down to the rest of the point cost the other Primaris stuff are. I could be wrong there. I was using Battlescribe, using Codex to try, and so there could be a little discrepancies in the points there. Trying to use Battlescribe because it's usually pretty accurate, but in most cases, sometimes it's not. We have like Wolfguard Battle Leader and Terminator Armor is not 70 points anymore, which is great. He's down. Well, no, he is 70 points now. He's down 23 points. Down 18 points on the Wolfguard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf. If you wanted to bring him around with you, if you have Thunderwolf Cavalry and you have the Battle Leader is a lieutenant equivalent, so you can follow around your Thunderwolf Cavalry a little bit cheaper there. Wolf Lord with Jump Pack went down 23, and then just Wolf Priest went down 3. Wolf Priest and Terminator Armor went down 5. Wolf Priest with Jump Pack went down 7. And then for troops, they were brought in line. Their Blood Claws and Grey Hunters were brought down a point to bring them in line with the rest of the Space Marines. So, I mean, that's nice. Thank you for that, Games Workshop. And then the Pack Leader and the Wolfguard Pack Leader and the Terminator went down points as well. Now, all the characters, we'll go over them because these are pretty significant. We have Aryak Rockfist down 35, Canis Wolfbarn down 25, Herald Deathwolf down 53, 15 on Crom, 30 on Logan Grimnar on foot. I think that's 35 on Stormrider. He went down in points. So if you want to bring him on his little chariot, it's just 15 more points, which is actually not bad. But then he's targetable because he's not.
Right.
Yeah, so it's the fact that it's only 15 more points isn't that bad, I guess. Lucas the Trickster's down 30 points, 45-point drop on Murderfang. Niall Stormcrawler's down 23. Niall Stormcrawler and Terminator Armor's down 28. Ragnar Blackmane's down 41, and then his little puppies went down 4 points each as well. So they're not 8 points each anymore, they're only 4 points. And Ulrich the Slayer's down 25. I actually use Ulrich a lot just because I really like his model, so that's also nice. I can bring a couple of more Space Marines with that one. The rest of the stuff for the Space Wolves aren't that important, minus the Wolfen. They got huge point reductions. The Wolfen went down 5 points per model, and their war gear went down as well. So the Frost Claws aren't 15 points anymore, they're 11 points, they went down 4. And the Great Frost Axe, the one you get an extra attack with, and it's +3 strength at D3 damage, so it's strength 8 -3 D3 damage each, and extra attack when you charge is only 9 points instead of 17 points now. He went down 8 points.
That's a lot.
So overall, if you're going to bring Wolfen with a Great Axe, they went down a total of 13 points each. So that's 130 points for a squad of 10 you just saved. The Thunderhammer Storm Shield, I believe, is the exact same point cost, though, so let me double check that. What do we got over here? Yeah, that didn't change at all. So still the same point cost on them, which is the usual build you want to do with them. But I mean, at least now you can build much cheaper Wolfen units and not have to worry about doing the Thunderhammer Storm Shield thing. Or if you want to use Frost Claws, those are super cheap now too. Also, the Great Wolf Claw for the Dreadnought they have, and the Fenrisian Great Axe went down in points as well as the Blizzard Shield went down points, I believe. Nope, Blizzard Shield stayed the same. So the Great Axe went down 20 points, and the Great Wolf Claw went down 25. And of course, the Wolfen Dreadnought went down 5 points as well. So all around, just the good stuff for Space Wolves all got lowered. Long Fangs went down a point as well. That's actually worth noting because some people usually bring 10 to 15 of them. So right there, that's...
Save some points there?
Exactly. You're saving 10 to 15 points there. So that could add up to something. Overall, a lot of internal balance added to this book, which I love to see. Fenrisian Wolves went down 2 points too. Forgot to note that. Not super important, but it kind of made me happy to see. What you're going to see with a lot of the other points changes here, we're not going to note a lot of them, like Death Watch. The only thing worth noting is the Intercessors and Veterans went down a point each, I believe. Again, using other sources, but pretty sure they went down 1 point each. Intercessors at 17, Veterans at 14 without war gear. I believe they were 15, 18 before. So when you use a lot of that stuff, that does add up to be a lot.
Another really cool army to talk about is the Grey Knights, because they're in a really weird spot right now.
Bad spot.
Yeah, weird as in bad.
Yeah.
But they have some really cool drops to talk about. So Strike Squads went down by 5 points. So
Per model.
Per model. So you can save a ton of points when purchasing, because you can buy them, squads of 20?
I don't think they're basic troop. They come in 5, but you need them as troops. Well, I guess you can bring Terminators as troops too. I don't know if they go. Do they go up to 20? Maybe they do. I actually don't know. I don't know what. Oh, no, it says right there.
5 to 10. Okay.
There you go. It says right there.
So
they go up to 10.
So you can save actually quite a bit of points when purchasing these guys. So they went down 5 points per. Purifier squads went down by 5. Purgation squads went down by 5. Paladin squads went down by 4. It's pretty healthy there.
Again, these are all per model, so there's a lot of point reductions.
Yeah.
A lot of internal balance, a lot of balance coming to the Grey Knights in that form. They have cool rules before. They were just too pricey. That was their biggest weakness.
The Nemesis Dread Knight went down by 30.
Yep.
It's pretty hefty there.
And the Grand Master went down by 20 in armor.
In armor.
In the Dread Knight armor.
Also, the Dread Fist or the 2 Dread Fists for the melee weapons went down 15 to 25 respectively as well.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty good,
they went down a bunch of points. The Dreadfists are super cheap now compared to what they were before.
Yeah.
So a lot of good, healthy changes for the Grey Knights. I imagine a lot of you out there pretty happy with that. And then that's it for the Power Armor kind of Space Marine guys. We have the rest of the forces of the Imperium coming up next. Nothing to really note for the Sororita. The Custodes, they did see some drops. The Shield Captains not on bike went down 10 points each. The Veritas Praetor and Terminator went down 10 points. Valorous went down 5 points for whatever reason. Sure. The Castellan Axe went down 3 points, and the Guardian Spear went down 3 points as well. And the Vexilla Imperius was 50 points before. That's the banner. I think that gave them an extra attack if they're nearby. That went down 30 points, so it's only 20 base now. So it kind of brings it in line with the Vexilla Magnifica and the Vexilla Defensor. Here's a big one. Misericordias all went down 1 point across the board. So usually people only added them if they had 4 points or like 8 points. And like, okay, a couple of Misericordias on characters. Now they're only 3 points each. Nice. So that's kind of a nice little saving grace there. Next big thing to talk about.
The Assassins.
Assassins. They all went up 10 points each. So if you're going to bring all Assassins to an army, that's an extra 40 points you're spending on them. Or if you're even bringing one, if you're going to be using the Requisition kind of form, it's like 2 command points to bring an assassin into your army.
Okay.
You have to put 95 points aside for that now. It was only 85 before.
Yeah.
It might not sound like a lot, but that is a lot, especially when you're bringing all 4 of them. But they were pretty powerful before, so it makes sense that this happened to them.
Yeah. Going on now to the forces of the Astra Militarum, kind of, the bread and butter, the backbone of the forces of the Imperium. They actually saw quite a bit of points reductions, but this is mostly in the big chassis of their tanks. So we were taking a look at like the Bane Blade, for example, went down in 40 points. The Bane Hammer went down 20. Bane Sword went down 20. Yep. The Doom Hammer went down by 50
points. Yeah, 350 base now, that bad boy.
Yeah, the Hell Hammer went down by 30. Lehman Russ Battle Tanks went down 15 points, which is pretty interesting. And then Wyverns, they went up by 10 points.
Yep. So Lehman Russes, I found on their own weren't that great. It was mostly the tank commanders. So yeah. I don't think the tank commanders got changed at all. What do we see? Tank commanders the same point cost. Lehman Russes weren't being brought as much, and they're a very big staple to the Astra Militarum. So I'm understanding why Games Workshop reduced the points on them. And people weren't bringing a lot of the big tanks because they were very overcosted. Not very, obviously, but like, what is this one here? 50 points on the Doomhammer. So the Doomhammer's down by 50 points, right? So I know you're probably saying if you have a hard time against Astra Militarum already, point reductions on them. It's points reduction on things you didn't see a lot of. Or if you did see a lot of this stuff and you were still being beat by them, well, that's rough. Yeah. I guess. Wyverns going up 10 points is nice because Wyverns were already kind of obnoxious. So seeing them go up. Sergeant Harker went down 5 points for some reason. And one thing to really note is...
Oh, no, that was Nord D-Dog.
Oh, sorry, Nork Degnog. Yeah, Nork Degnog went down 5 points. Yeah. Mortars. Ooh, the mortar weapon went up 4 points each. So no longer are they 33 points for 3 mortars. It is now an extra 12, so 45 points. Yeah. So it's 45 points for units of mortars instead of 33. That is a good change.
I still think you'll see them.
100%. You'll still see them all the time, but that means like per mortar you bring, that's 1 less infantryman because they're unfortunately still 4 points. But rejoice, because when we get to Chaos, Cultists went down to 4 points again. Yeah. So all of you who have been complaining about Cultists being up at 5 points, they are, in fact, only 4 points now. So that's a good, healthy change for them. Cultists aren't really an issue in the game anymore, so there's no reason to bump them up to 5 points each.
Something that we did see also, too, is in their ranged weapons, las cannons went down by 5 points, and missile launchers went down by 5 points.
Which is odd, because I would have liked to see missile launchers go down in points for both the Chaos Space Marines and the Space Marines, because no one really brings them. There's no reason. They're not cheaper. They should be half the points of a las cannon. Right? Or, because you give you that option. I think missile launchers are 20 points now as a base cost, and las cannons are 25. Maybe not half, but like maybe make missile launchers 15 points each. Give them something, or give them a little bit more incentive to use them as opposed to las cannon. You save 10 points per model that has a missile launcher over a las cannon, and that can add up to a lot. That's pretty much it for the changes on the Astra Militarum. The Mechanicus, they got random changes across the board. The Electro Priests are 2 points less each. The Infiltrators and Rustalkers are both 3-4 points less respectively. I don't even know what a Tech Priest Manipulus is. I think that's got the guy from the Kill Team box. I could be wrong. I think that's from him. He's down 25 points. The Dominus is down 10 points. Call is the same. The ranged weapons are all very much kind of the same, except for the Neutron Laser went down 10. Like stuff that we kind of noted there. Moving on to the Imperial Knights. Some notable changes here. The Knight Castellan went back down 50 points. They bumped him up 100. No one used him anymore, and okay, things have calmed down. Let's bring him back down a little bit. Yeah. It's kind of like bandages on the community, I guess. Kind of like throwing sand on a fire. But then it's like it's a nuclear fire, so the sand is just only going to get really hot and superheat.
Right, yeah.
And, So you know what? It's calming down. It's brought down 50 points. Both the Helverin and the Warglaive went down 15 points each. I'm a little sad to see that because I thought the Helverin was already really good. So it going down 15 points kind of scary. But you know what? They know best. And regardless of what you think, I think they do know best. They do this a lot. And I guess we'll see where that goes. 20 extra points on the Gallant and 5 extra points on the Preceptor, which is the Canis Rex model, I believe. And Canis Rex himself went down 50 points. He's 400 points now instead of 450. Yeah. Which is nice. It's always nice to see that kind of stuff. Other than that, though, the Inquisition we didn't look too much into, just because not too sure on the changes on them. And Eisenhorn's 80 points. I think he was 100 points before. I'd love to bring Eisenhorn to a game. He's like one of my favorite characters from the 40k universe. It's never really come up yet. He's never really come up. Now we move on to the Forces of Chaos.
Hey, Chaos! Chaos! Yeah, so we saw a lot of changes with the Forces of Chaos.
Healthy ones, very healthy changes.
Yeah, some point reductions. So going down the line, Demon Princes with Wings went down 15 points.
That was showed off on Warhammer Community already, so that was already known.
But it's glad to know that it's confirmed.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's pretty good with them. Dark Apostle went down 28 points. Master of Executions went down 10. Master of Possession down 10. So did a Sorcerer, went down by 10.
Yep.
A Sorcerer and Terminator Armor went down by 2.
Just keep a lot of these like little minor point changes, like 1 and 2, are just to kind of give them a hard number of 5 or 10.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are 95 points or 100 points. They're not 102. They're 100. Or they're not 93. They're 95 or 90. Something like that.
Chaos Cultists went down by 1, and then Chaos Space Marines went down by 2.
Which is huge because Chaos Space Marines are now cheaper than Loyalist Marines by a point.
Yeah, so I think that's good.
Chaos Space Marines are 11 points each as opposed to 13, or as opposed to the 12 of the Imperium. The Chaos Space Marines used to be 13 points each. And it's like pretty much nothing but point drops down the board.
Yeah, we have Chosen -2, Greater Possessed -10, Berserkers -1, Noise Marines -2, and Rubric Marines -2.
But the Rubric Marine's a funny one.
Yeah, because then their gun actually
get excited.
Went up by 2.
Yeah, the Infernal Bolt Gun is now 0 points. Wait, no, sorry, it's
+2.
Oh, right, no, it says 0 here. I think we made a mistake. Never mind. They did go down to. Why did we write +2? That makes no sense. It says.
We're going
we were looking at something else nearby. Sorry, my bad.
It's the Infernal Bolt Pistol.
Yeah. We lied. It's 0 points for both of them. Rubric Marines actually did go down by 2 points. I'm a liar. I don't know. Yeah. I don't even know how that happened. Whatever. Scratch that. 0 points for an Infernal Bolt Gun. They are 16 points each now, which is a healthy change for them because they were a little priced at 18. I thought it was funny that they would reduce it by 2 but increase the gun by 2, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. No one else takes the Infernal Bolt Gun. Yeah. So I was indeed incorrect there.
But we have Chaos Spawn -5, Warp Talons -5. A Chaos Land Raider went down by -20, which is nice because we rarely saw them. Chaos Predators down by 5, Forge Fiend -20. Mauler Fiend -10, Obliterators are -20.
That's a huge change.
Yeah.
So Obliterators were incredibly overcosted at 115 points each. Now at 95 points each, still pretty steep because that is still like that one model is 100 points almost, right? Yeah. So it's very easy to kill that one model, and it's very easy to kill them if they're in units and stuff too. So there are a couple of lists brewing out there with Alpha Legion, Night Lord, kind of like Obliterator character kind of use, so that will benefit that list greatly as well, if that does go anywhere.
Venom Crawlers went down by 15, and then the Khorne Lord of Skulls went down by 65 points.
But his war gear also went down, like the Hades Gatling gun went down 94 points. 94 points. So in the end, I think we calculated him, he was 638, now he's 479 points for a Khorne Lord of Skulls. That actually brings him in line with Knights. Yeah. That's huge. If you don't want to run Chaos Knights and you want to run just like all Chaos Space Marines and you want a Khorne Lord of Skulls, he's less than 500 points now. He's less than 25% of your army in a 2,000 point game. That, to my standards, that's A-okay. Yeah. Like, I don't like running anything more than 25% of my army in one unit. Now you're good to go in a 2,000 point game. That's a huge change. In fact, I'll probably do that in one of my future 40k games. I'll play like Khorne, and I'll have a Khorne Lord of Skulls, and it'll be all cool like that. Or maybe I'll do Black Legion with one or something, but...
The Helldrake stayed the same. However, the Bale Flamer actually went down by 10, so technically it got cheaper.
And I think his little claws went down too. His Helldrake claws went down 17 points. Yes, his Helldrake claws are 0 now.
Yeah, so nice and cheap.
So he
pretty
like
good.
altogether for him, he went down 27 points
That's healthy.
when you include his war gear. Like I said, like these are all really great changes across the board for Chaos. The Havocs didn't go down. That makes sense. They're still 14 points a model. They're T5 with ignoring moving, firing heavy weapons. At 14 points a model is A-okay. Now for named characters, Abaddon went down 30 points. He's only 210 instead of 240. Fabius Biles down 10, and Harkin World Claimer is down 23, which I find odd because he kind of breaks the rule I mentioned earlier where they're trying to keep them at hard multiples of 5. He's actually 92 points instead of like being 90. Why didn't they just give him the extra 2? Why didn't they just make him 90? I don't know. For other war gear, the Noise Marine's Blastmaster went down 8 points, so it's not 20 anymore. That's great. The cannon on the Cornler Skulls went down. We already kind of mentioned that. The Icarus cannon's down 33 points. And then we have negative 10 on a Magma Cutter. And that's pretty much it. Hellbrute Fist got cheaper too. They went down 10 points on each. So instead of being 30-40, it is 20-30.
Yeah.
So you actually, well, you save a lot of points. You don't save too many points, but you save a lot. Skull Hurler's down points. The Warp Flamer's down 2. Oh, Warp Flamer's down 2 points. I like that one.
Yeah.
So that's the weapon on your Rubric Marines. So you can bring like 20 Warp Flamers in a unit. Well, now you're saving 40 points, I guess, but you're still paying like 160 points in Warp Flamers there.
Yeah.
Yikes. And I don't think I've seen anyone ever bring a 20-man squad of them. And then you have Lightning Claws going down 2. You have your Power Scourge going down 10. Thunderhammers on characters are up to 40 now.
Yeah, that's in line with
Space
Space
Marines.
Marines.
Yep. Yeah. On to Death Guard. Now, this is something I want to note. The Death Guard Demon Prince with wings didn't change at all.
No.
So technically, by that standard, he went down. He went up 15 points if all the other Demon Princes went down. That's because the Death Guard Demon Prince is already pretty good on his own. So there's no point in reducing his points. And then also, for thousands, we'll get to the Thousand Suns when we get to the Thousand Suns. What do we have here? We got point drop on the Plaguecaster by 15, so he's less than 100. That's great. So he's all the sorcerers now for Chaos are 90 points, but for Disgusting Resilient, I'm paying an extra 5 points for that. That's not bad. I'm definitely okay with that. We have the Blight Hauler down 15 each, Noxus Blightbringer down 5. And sorry if this is boring. It's kind of how it works. And then when you're going over like 100 points going down. I know we said we weren't going to go over all of them, but screw it. Poxwalkers went down 1. I love that change. Poxwalkers at 5 points per model now is great. Especially with all the nerfs they've been seeing with the FAQs and erratas over the last few years of 8th edition, which they needed. So, I mean, don't take that in a negative way. They definitely needed that with what you nasty people out there were doing with them. Typhus went down 20 points. Very happy about that. I actually stopped bringing him because he was 175 points, and that was too much. It was like too oppressive. But now with him cheaper and Poxwalkers cheaper, I can do a cool Death Guard. I can do my like initial idea. My initial list was like Typhus and Poxwalkers, and I was gonna do it all up, but then Poxwalkers got nerfed once, got nerfed again. I'm like, you know what? I wasn't gonna try and do the nasty stuff with them, but the fact that I can't do anything cool with them anymore, I'm just gonna scrap that list, and I made a close combat Plague Marine list instead.
Gotcha.
So that's why I have the Plague Marines I have now. And is that...
What about Thousand Suns?
Yeah, we have the... Why don't you go ahead and do the Thousand Suns?
Thousand Suns, the Demon Prince with wings actually went up in points by 5 points. And if that makes total sense because out of all the Demon Princes, the Thousand Suns one was, I think, one of the most oppressive ones.
It's the one being spammed in tournament play, too. So, like, you probably don't like to hear it, but these tournament kind of things do affect a lot of these point changes because it's like, if everyone's bringing them en masse, if they're bringing 3 of them, obviously there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Keep their rules the same, increase their points a little bit. So with everything else going down 15 points, they technically went up 20.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to affect your list by 20 points, but it's going to be 5 points more expensive. That's like one less Plague Bearer here or there and stuff like that. And you know what? I've said it multiple times in the past, Tzeentch and Nurgle do not work together. Stop running that list. It's such a stupid list. I hate it. I hope it's dead.
But moving on with that, before Luka goes on a little bit of
Yeah, it's fine.
Sorcerers went down by 10. Terminator Armor went down by 2.
Their sorcerers are 10 points cheaper than normal Chaos sorcerers.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Rubrics went down by 2. I think we covered that. Zangors went down by 1. I don't really like Zangors. That's my personal gruff with them. Scarab Call Terminators went down by 4. I'm kind of excited about that. Zangor Enlightened also went down by 2. And I think also their weapons had a bit of a change. Yeah, the Fatecaster Great Bow went down by 4.
Their Divining Spear went down by 2. It's only 1 point now. I don't know why they wouldn't just make it. I don't know. Whatever. They got their reasons.
But now we're going to go into the Chaos Demons, I think, which saw
probably like
the biggest point change ever in all of this.
Yes. So essentially, all the big greater demons saw massive point drops because no one's really bringing them. They're too easy. They're you can't hide them. They're very easy to kill. Oh, they have a 5-up save.
across the board.
The only durable one's the Great Unclean one, and like he's relying on a 5-up save afterwards. But even the Great Unclean went down in points as well. Overall,
you're seeing anywhere between a 30 to a 45 point decrease in all of the greater demons.
yeah, like a lot of the named characters for Thousand Suns went down as well. Quickly, like if we were to quickly go over it, Be'lakor down 40, Bloodthirster of Insensate Rage down 30, and Unfettered Fury down 30, Blue Scribe's Changeling down 11 and 13. We have the Fate Skimmer down 20, Fluxmaster down 14. The Great Unclean one pretty much down 35 points across the board, unless he's got a Doomsday Bell equipped. Then he's down 45 points. So the Doomsday Bell is 10 points cheaper, or even more cheaper. We have Herald of Slanesh down 10. That's good for Vito there. So instead of it was 60, it's now 50. We have Herald of Slanesh on Exalted Chariot down 20. Herald of Slanesh on Secret Chariot down 26. Horticulus Slimux down 15. Infernal and Rapturous down 10. Kairos Fate Weaver down 35. Keeper of Secrets down 30 points across the board. Just 30. So all of its loadouts, all 30 points cheaper. Now Vito here likes to run 3 of them plus Shalaxi Hellbane. So if you're saving 30, how much is Shalaxi? Is she down 30? She's down 40.
She's down 40 points.
So you save 90, you save 130 points. That's 130 points you just saved by running that kind of build. Now, you have to run that many because, like I said, they get shot down super easy.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've seen a lot of my battle reports, I take those Keeper of Secrets as, okay, here are these big monsters.
They're going to run you
deal
right
with them because they can move 16, and then I advance them.
And charge them.
And then I charge them with my Locust special ability. So if I get a 6, they can go 20 and then charge. So you have to deal with these big monsters, or else they're going to tear you to bits. And then I have 90 Demonettes following behind them. So you have to deal with either one or the other.
And people will often deal with the Keepers can do a lot of damage. They're harder to kill. Like they're still toughness 7. They're still 16 moons, so that alone is a respectable characteristic. Minus the fact they don't really have an armor save. They have a 5-up invulnerable save, but that is super, like, you could rush one right out 4, you can do, like, and then you can Warp Surge one.
Warp Surge for a 4-up invulnerable save.
Yeah. And then, like, the biggest threat to them in the location, make that one a little bit durable, or a little bit more durable. And again, like we said, that's, like, all of the greater demons. The Wrath of Khorne went down, and so did Scarbrand. Scarbrand went down 40 points, Wrath of Khorne's down 30. All your greater demons, I would love to see if they get played now. If they're actually going to be relevant, because you're the literal only person I've seen run a greater. I haven't played against Chaos a lot, but when I have, never a greater demon there. It's like you see Chaos all the time in tournaments. It's the 60 Plague Bearers, completely surrounding Ahriman on disc with 3 Demon Princes or 3,000 Sun Demon Princes.
Yeah, me personally, I always love running mono armies.
Mono arm, yeah, 100%. I understand. Like I'm of the same accord. The only time I didn't run mono armies is when the Space Marines got their combat doctrines, and I was sour that the Space Wolves didn't get anything cool like that. So I just started running Assassins with my Space Wolves because whatever, I don't have combat doctrines, so I'll mix my army up. Plus, Assassins are really cool at the time. Now, one big notable change is a rumor that was floating around. Confirmed, Plague Bearers did go up a point each. Thank you. I'm going to be a jerk and rub it in your face. I hate that list. I hate any list that breaks the narrative. Like, I don't like, oh man. I'm going to stop there. But Plague Bearers going up a point. Now, I know a lot of people out there are already like, Plague Bearers going up a point doesn't matter because they're already getting dummied by Space Marines. It's true. Plague Bearers don't really stand a chance against Space Marines because of the amount of firepower they have, the amount of, like, because of all the rewording on the re-rolling on, this is, I guess, more of a competitive segment of this talk here. Because the fact that the new, you know how it used to be like re-rolled failed hit rolls, re-rolled failed hit rolls. You could make Plague Bearers -2 to hit. Right, so all of a sudden, if you're re-rolling all failed hit rolls, where you're hitting on 5s, rolling 1s and 2s, it's not that effective. Now it's just hitting on 5s, re-roll everything.
Right.
Hitting on 5s, rolling everything. The negatives don't matter as much as they used to matter. And then Space Marines got all these new rules for shooting more bullets more effectively in the certain doctrines they're in. So Plague Bearers don't really stand a chance against Space Marines. Space Marines is actually a really good counter to the Plague Bearer list. I actually went to a tournament recently where I had gone second against the Plague Bearers. They were able to get into my lines, and I was still able to kill 60 of them and like 20 Bloodletters in the course of 2 turns.
Oh, wow.
Just was like various Space Marines shooting all over the place, and it's just overwhelming. And them going up a point is probably not justified, but I just don't want to see that list anymore. I want to see more creative mono Chaos lists, which I know are probably impossible because Chaos are really, really bad right now. But get creative, people. Don't mix Thousand Suns or Tzeentch and Nurgle. That doesn't work. They've technically, you could have always allied them together before, but literally when they were on the same table together, they would hurt each other.
Right.
Because they were never meant to be played together. Unless, you really, really wanted to. Anyways,
we saw some changes in fast attack where Furies are at -1, Plague Drones are -4, Screamers are -5. Jumping into elites, we have Beasts of Chaos at -4, Blood Crushers minus, is that 7? I think that's 7, yeah.
Beast and Nurgle minus 4, yeah.
Yeah. Exalted Flamers are -20.
Yep.
Fiends are -5. That is incredible because Fiends are so good.
They're already really good, right? So it's nice to see them have a drop.
And then Flamers are another -5. In heavy supports, Burning Chariots -10. Exalted Seeker Chariots -10.
I don't think anyone brings these.
No, yeah. And then Skull Cannons -10.
And then their Demon Prince with Wings also respectively went down 15 points as well. So he's not 170. He's
That's kind of across the board. It's once again, except for Thousand Suns.
And Nurgle.
Yeah.
That's like I said. We think that the demons got the biggest changes there, which they needed. Right, their greater demons were like suffering across the board. For Chaos Knights, we have Knight Desecrator down 45, we believe, and the War Dog, which is their Armiger equivalent, down 15, which brings it in line with the rest of the Armigers going down 15 points as well. Forces of Xenos. I was doing this on my own, and I didn't notice anything interesting with the Eldar. Shining Spears went down 2 points. I think Wraith Knight went down 30 points. The named characters went down. Eldrad Uthrain actually went up 10 points. He's
oh wow.
Yep. We have Bone Singer down 15, which is the elite character that heals the Wraiths. Fuegan went down 15. Illic Night Spear went down 15. We have Autark with Swooping Hawkwings, I believe, went up 5 points. Force Shield actually went down 4 points. That's a nice change if you do want to run Force Shields. I'm pretty sure Autarks have to run Force Shields, so by default, Autarks are a little bit cheaper, I believe. And then like the ranged weapons, I couldn't really find any relevant point drops there, or I skipped past them. For Drukhari, very minor changes because Drukhari I find are in a pretty good spot right now. Played specific ways, of course. Not all ways are great. Archon went down 15 points, so there you go, Skari. If you're watching, or if anyone who knows Archon Skari, go check out his content at Scardcast, by the way. He's got great content over there.
Yeah, he's a nice guy too.
Yeah, he loves Drukhari. He loves his Archon, so now he gets an extra 15 points to play with. Nice. So kudos to you. We have Reavers down 3. We have Hellions down 2. Chronos down 5, which is the weird kind of like homunculus thing. Yeah. And Drazar went down 20 points, unless he was updated to be 20 points in Phoenix Awakening 1. I'm actually not, or 100 points in Phoenix Awakening 1. I'm not too sure on him, actually. Dark Lance went down 5 points. That's a huge change because that brings it in line with the Disintegrator Cannon. So the Disintegrator Cannon was always the must-bring. It was like Strength 5, 3 shots each, -2 or 3 flat 2 damage. It was so good. And now the Dark Lance isn't as expensive. I'm going to assume that everyone's going to bring the Disintegrator gun still. But now at least you have a cheaper Dark Lance. So now it's not such an... maybe it is still an obvious choice. But it's not as obvious because like, ooh, I could do... Maybe it's just a lie. Maybe it's just more like for new players. They're both 15 points.
It's a lie.
I don't know. People are going to bring the Disintegrator cannons, I assume. I could be wholly wrong there, but I don't really know much about the Drukhari. All I know is the Disintegrator cannons are real good. We have Harlequins and Inari. Harlequins went down a little bit. Shadowseer went down 15. Troop went down... Oh, their troops went down 2 points per model.
Oh, okay.
Now they're only 11 points. So they're toughness 3, strength 3, with a 4 up and vulnerable save, and they move really fast, and that's literally all they got going for them. When you upgrade them with their fusion stuff, they're still super expensive. Like, that didn't really go down too much. Fusion pistol's still 7, I believe. The Inari characters all stayed the same. They didn't change at all. Necron's seen a lot of point changes. I guess I'm pretty happy with them. I'm mostly happy with the name characters. Technically, the name character drops.
Yeah, actually, quite a few here, actually.
Actually, yeah, there is. Now that I look at it, I'm actually happy with a lot of these changes. The troops stayed the same, which is fine. I think they're at a good point cost now. Anything cheaper would be a little too much on them. They're not overpowered, but you could like spamming them en masse. It's a lot of firepower you have to dictate towards them. All the name characters went down. Enrokir went down 27. The Deceiver and the Nightbringer went down 45 and 25 respectively. So they're not over 200 points anymore, thank goodness. Well, the Nightbringer was only ever 180, but now he's 155. Illuminor went down 10. Imhotep went down 20. Imhotep's actually not bad, so him going down 20 is kind of cool. Nemesis Zandrek went down 25. Orc and the Diviner went down 15. And Vargard Oberyn went down 10. I like to bring Zandrek and Oberyn a lot because that's the Sancho Panza and Don Quixote combination. So them combined, I just saved 35 points.
Nice.
Which is kind of cool.
Put it towards somewhere else.
The Catacomb Command Barge went down 19 points. I love the Catacomb Command Barge, so that going down was nice. Destroyer Lord went down 15. Lord went down 10, and Overlord went down 14. That's like the 3rd point drop they've all seen since they first came out with the Necron. They came out, and then Necron Codex came out, and then Chapter Approved they got lowered. They got lowered in the Necron Codex as well, and then in this release they got lowered yet again. So maybe now they're at their balance point level. I remember the Overlord used to be, I think, 110 points. I think when it first came out in the index.
70 now.
Yeah, down to 70 points. Troops stayed the same. Death Marks went down 3 points. Flayed Ones went down 4 points, and Lich Guard went down 2 points. Big fan of that. That's really helpful.
Canoptic Wraiths went down to 6.
Yes, that's really good too. Now 42 instead of 48, so a little bit shy of 50 there, a little more so. Annihilation Barge went down 10. Spider went down 20 points. No one's going to bring the Spider still, but it's kind of nice to see us getting some recognition. I could be wrong. Heavy Destroyers went down 13 points. That's good because they were like way worse than normal Destroyers. So them going down to 17 instead of 30. Monolith went down 20 points. That's the third drop for the Monolith again. Probably still not going to bring it.
Right.
But it's still kind of cool. At 300 points, it's ridiculously expensive. The Transcendent Shard went down 20 points. He's 180 instead of 200. The Night Scythe went down 20 points. The Obelisk went down 30 points. And the Tesseract Vault recently seen a point increase in chapter proof. So it's going to stake to that. The Tesseract Vault is a really good thing for the Necrons to bring, so it staying at 566 points totally makes sense. I don't blame them. Heat Ray went down 10 points. That's a Triarch Stalker weapon. Particle Caster went down 2. Particle Shredder went down 5. Rod of the Covenant went down 6. It used to be 10. That's the weapon for the Praetorians, so technically if you bring them, they're 6 points cheaper. So they are only 20 points per model instead of 26 points per model. The Twin Heavy Gauss Cannon went down 10. The Whip Coils went down 5, which is an upgrade for the Canoptic Rays. So if you do have Rays with Whip Coils, that allows them to fight before they die. A little bit cheaper there.
Nice.
That's pretty much it for the Necrons. Kind of like trying to speed through this now for you guys because there's not too much more interesting things. Unfortunately, like I was hoping to see a little bit more rules changes in this book, I think, but we'll get them later in another FAQ. Plus, we're also running out of time, so let's power through this now. We got Orcs left.
Orcs.
So people were worried that Gretchen were going to go up to 4 points per model. That is not true. They're still at 3 points per model. Boys are still at 7. All of the fast attack, those weird vehicles that came out in the. What was that box set where they're racing? Do you remember? Came out like
Speed
Freaks?
I think it was Speed Freaks.
Well, it's something like that. Yeah. It was like the
Doom buggies,
the Boom Daka Snaz Wagon, the Custom Booster Blaster, the Mega Truck Scrapjet, the Rocket Truck Squig Buggies, Shock Jump Dragsters, all went down points except for the Squig Buggies stayed at 100.
Defcopters minus 10 as well.
Yeah, Defcopter's got a nice change there too. So like minus 20 points, minus 20. The Mega Track Scrapjets, it was 140 points. It went down 60 points. Like that's a huge drop.
Wow.
It went down almost 50%.
Steve was not happy when he saw that the Stompa went down 50 points.
Yep. The Stompa went down 50 points, I'm pretty sure. It's now 50 points without its war gear. Or sorry, 80 points without its war gear. It was 850. I don't think any of its war gear really went down either, though. No, I didn't really note any of that.
And besides that, there's no other changes to the Orcs.
No, there's that.
The Flash, yeah.
The Flash Kits went down 6, Death Dread went down 10, Killicans went down 10. They're 30 points per model without war gear now.
And knobs on war bikes are minus 5 points.
Oh, and Burning Boys are minus 2. Nice. There you go. So you got some nice. So obviously the things that went down in points are the things that were never seen. So it kind of makes sense. So maybe a little more incentive to bring them. Gretchen not going up a point. I don't really fight against Orcs that much. I know they can be super obnoxious. So maybe they needed the point increase. I actually don't know. But they're still at 3. So anyone who is worried about them going up, Mike, if you're watching, they didn't go up. Yeah, that was it for them. The Tau Empire, we've seen Kroots go down a point. Kroot Carnivores went down a point. The Crisis Battlesuits and the Crisis Bodyguards went down 3 points each. The Stealth Battlesuits actually went down 6 points. I don't think Stealth Suits were all that great, but people like to bring them because they had them because they used to be really good. Mm-hmm. So if they didn't add to their collection, they kind of brought them anyways. Now they're 14 points a model. So, that's not true. The Burst Cannons are 8 points, so they're 20 minus upgrades to their systems. They are 22 points a model.
Sniper drones went down 2,
which is super annoying because sniper drones.
They went down 2. They went down 2 points.
Yeah, they're at 16 now instead of 18. Sniper drones are really obnoxious and built the proper way. You know, they could be really, really devastating.
Why can't shield drones go up by 40? That would have been great.
Yeah,
shield drones.
I would see. There's a rumor that shield drones weren't going to get the ignored damage against mortal wounds. I would have loved to see that. Maybe that'll still come out one day. Yeah. I don't know. A lot of the rumors that were floating around didn't actually come true, which is big surprise there. Storm Surge went down 20 points on his own, and some of his war gear went down a little bit too. I can't quite remember what that was. I think it was the Pulse Blast Cannon went down 23 points, and the Drive Cannon went down 20 points. I think those are both his gun options. They both went down. That pretty much moves us to Tyranids. There's a fusion, like a couple other weapons went down, but they're not really super relevant. The Cyclic Ion Riker went down 12 points for the Ghost Keel. For Tyranids, we have Biovores going down 10, Exocrine going down 15, which is actually something I noted because Exocrine already was really good, I found. So it's going down 15 points, especially with the new Tyranid rules and the Blood of Baal. Giving Exocrines even more power. That could be something to watch out for. Higher Specs down 20. We have Thornbacks No, sorry. Is that Thornbacks? Yeah, oh, I think a Thornback's a type of Carnifex.
I stayed the same.
Yeah,
But the Turvagon went down 18.
Toxic Green went down 15. Tyranid Warriors went down 2 points a model. That's kind of nice to have. People do like to bring Tyranid Warriors. Impaler Cannon went down 5. Not a lot of points change in Xenos, guys.
No,
Xenos are looking kind of healthy, according to Games Workshop. We've seen some point changes on the Gene Stealer Cult in the form of nerfs, actually. The Aberrants went up 3 points each, and the Kellermorph went up 15 points each.
Wow.
So if you're bringing 3 Kellermorphs, that's an extra 15 points. Gene Stealer Cults are already very powerful.
Yeah.
So those two, I think that was like the only changes I really noticed as well. Jackals didn't go up any points. They were super cheap. People brought them because I think they're super cheap, and the war gear you could take on them was quite good. And then the rest of the stuff is
Forge World
stuff that we didn't
fortifications.
We didn't really go over the Forge World stuff. One thing I want to note, if anyone's curious, the Relic Leviathan Dreadnought did not go up points. It is still the exact same 303 points for Double Storm Cannon. So Iron Hand players rejoice, or anyone who uses a thing rejoice. That's it for the review, guys. If you stuck around for this whole thing, kudos to you.
You get 10 Vito Luka points.
Yeah. You know what? I'll throw 8 internet points on top of that.
Wow. So what? So 10 Vito Luka points and 8 internet points. What do you get?
What do you get with that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll figure out one day.
Right.
I can't
put a conversion chart.
Yeah.
On your bedroom wall or ceiling, and then one day you will get something in the mail from us two.
Nice. One day.
One day.
If you pester us enough, we'll give you something. Again, thank you for sticking around for the whole thing. If you did, if you just skipped through the thing, I don't blame you either, because that was a really long review. There's a lot to cover in this book, though.
Yeah.
This book's got a lot going on. Like this thing might seem very minor, but there is a lot in this as well. Right, the points changes. I know we kind of like skimmed through a lot of it at the end, but a lot of healthy changes for Chaos. Maybe that'll seem a little bit better played in the upcoming future, at least until next chapter approved or any future releases, stuff like that. Again, we want to ask you guys, if you want to check out the game that Vito and I played in the Vault, it was Slaanesh versus Random Space Marine chapter, and we both randomized our armies. We did one of the new Maelstrom of War missions using the new Schemes of War. That is in the Vault. Link down below. You can get yourself a 7-day free trial. Check it out. Check out any other reviews. The Shield of Ball is coming out at the same time, so we wanted some insight into that. That Vault access will get you that as well. And if, again, you can't really afford to be a Vault member, or you want to support us and you're already a Vault member, we have the shop at MiniWarGaming.com, where we offer a lot of our dice and tools of the trade as well when it comes to wargaming. As always, folks, thank you for sticking around. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully this gave you some insight and maybe convinced you to want to buy it, because I think
good stuff in there.
This is the good stuff. Right, exactly. Good stuff in here, and a lot of assets to further improve your experience when it comes to Warhammer 40K. As always, guys, see you next time.
Happy wargaming.
Folks, Vito and myself are fully set up, ready to play one of the new Maelstrom of War, Scheme of War scenarios at a chapter approved 2019. So if you checked out that review and you want a little bit more insight of how all that stuff we talked about works, you can click on the link below, get yourself that 7-day free trial, and you just cancel afterwards. But I think it's worth the watch. Well, I know it's worth the watch, mostly because we also used the random army generator to generate our armies, and I randomized what Legion, well not Legion, what chapter I'm playing when it comes to Space Marines. So, see you guys in the Vault. As always, happy wargaming.